So together we grow. Hemping ain't easy. Any of you that are hemping, and most of you in here are hemping, know that hemping is not easy. I told you this in the beginning. I stuck by it. Let's go to the next one. So this being our fifth, I believe it's our fifth or sixth farmers meeting. Thank you for attending. A lot of you I've seen come to all of them before. Everybody here should have plants in the ground. If you're not putting them in this week, you're almost running too late. We've created almost 500,000 seedlings and clones at Gabberdunes and gotten them out to the farmers. That's a huge amount for a small operation like we are. I appreciate all your help on that. We're going to talk about what's important or prevalent to this part of the year right now with growing is pruning up the bottom of our plants. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over decarboxylation. We've had some questions about hot plants. The cherry wine is dangerously close. It is not a hot plant. When we transport it, whether we're sending it to the lab or we're sending it to anywhere, it decarbs in the mail. We'll explain more on that. We have Gilbreth Laboratories, who's nice enough to come up from Knoxville and explain to you how that works for us. Open forum, so we'll have any questions that you want to do with our cast, which is an all-star cast. Carson Nation, a lot of you know from Facebook. Joe Kirkpatrick, president of TNHIA. Danny Hammonds of Pasture Plus. And the lawyer will be speaking on contracts today. If he makes it, he's caught up in traffic. He'll be here a little later. So I guess we want to start with the Mayor, Robin Brandon, doing the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. If everybody could stand up, we'll pledge the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Robin, did you want to say a few words?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. And I just want to reiterate what Frank said. The most important people in the room tonight is you, the farmers. I remember back in the 70s when I was a teenager, and I was talking to Steve about this earlier. In the summertime, everybody hauled hay, and in the autumn, we cut tobacco. And so that was just part of life. Tobacco, farming, logging, that's what's always been in Stewart County. That, for some reason, everybody knows why the tobacco industry kind of bottomed out. But I think we have an opportunity with hemp. We see that all across the country. It's proven everywhere it's been. So what I want to tell you tonight is that at the county level, we support this 100%, and we are going to try to help every way we can to bring this to Stewart County. We're helping educate and promote the police force. That's big. So we want to do that. We've been doing that. Frank has been doing that for the better part of a year now. So we're trying to get a strong foundation under us. I've talked about taxes, of course. I'm the county mayor. I want taxes for the revenue. I want revenue for this county. The best thing that can happen for this county is for you to be successful. Because if you are, and you bring your crop in, and it gets processed, and you guys make money, the land value in Stewart County goes through the roof, and we're all heroes. Okay? So that's what we want to see. So I'm going to, at my position, support you 100%. We're behind Frank. We want to see this work. We want to see it work at every level, and we're going to do everything we can all along the way. Good luck.
Okay, next up, I'm going to bring up Tyler, who's going to speak about, he's our Director of Viable Plants. Tyler came to me a student. He's a double major in biology and agriculture. He's a smart kid. He also has 7 years of military experience with him under his belt, which is what made me really like him. 4-year veteran with 2 tours under his belt in Afghanistan and Liberia. And he is our in-field consultant. If you have a problem on your farm and you need us to come out to it, we have to charge you for that. I can't offer that service for free. It's $70 while he's on site, and it's $35 an hour to get him there. So if you live 3 hours away, you have to do some math. If he lives less than an hour away, not a lot of math. Where is Tyler? Okay, Tyler's getting mic'd up right now. Tyler will be telling you about what we're going to be having on Saturday the 20th of July. We are going to have a class. It'll be probably a 6 or 7 hour class. It'll take you through the whole gambit, from popping the seed to cloning to lollipopping to pruning to drying to curing to pretty much everything. We could even get into a little home extraction if we wanted to. He's still not mic'd up yet, so I'll talk a little longer. If these classes take it, for the farmers that are already in our group, this is a $50 class. Anybody not in our group that's not in the Gabberdunes Collective, it's a $100 class. It'll be 7 hours. We'll take you down to the facility. We'll show you all the equipment we use, how to do everything. We'll also have how-to videos as far as this goes. And then we'll take you out to my farm and we'll get you some actual hands-on working on the actual plant. Tyler, go ahead.
Tyler.
There's no microphone.
What do you mean there's no microphone?
Oh, is that you?
Yeah.
We're hemp farmers, not AV wizards.
Oh, no.
Somebody closed it.
Can you wing it, Tyler?
Yeah, I can wing it.
We don't need the PowerPoint.
As Frank was mentioning, I'm going to do this class on the 20th. We'll go over everything from start to finish. Seed or clone, we'll talk about both. We'll talk about sexing your plants, how soon you can do that, because I think a lot of people were confused this growth season about sexing their plants. We'll talk about training techniques especially. We'll talk about for the smaller farmer who's doing maybe 100 plants, or for a larger farmer, what you can do to try to get bigger plants for yourselves. We'll talk about aeration and soil qualities. I've had a couple of farmers do land soil tests and get those back to me, and I've kind of given them here or there as to what they should do. If you want to bring any sort of questions you have, write them down, bring them to this, we'll get them all answered. As Frank's mentioned several times, it's going to move indoors in the next couple of years. We can talk about that and setting up indoors. I've had a lot of questions about lighting. I think that a lot of farmers starting out, they go out and they buy these LED lights, and there has to be a conversation about those LED lights, because they may say they're 1,000 watt, but they're really only giving you about 180. So we'll have a talk about that, nutrients, and then we'll go over drying and curing and what you're looking for bud quality.
All right, thank you, Tyler.
Don't switch.
Okay, we'll get it. Okay. We went over all that. So Galbraith Laboratories is who we're going to bring up next. Galbraith Laboratories is, as you can see here, Christy Myers in the back and Steve Tomnick. Did I say that right, Steve? Okay, Communicheck. They've been testing products, CSI stuff, since the 1950s. They're located in Knoxville, Tennessee. These are the people we send your results to, we send your samples to. If we don't send them on ice, they decarboxylate in the mail. Decarboxylating in the mail is just recently brought to our attention in the fact that we had some plants sit around in our warehouse, was over 90-degree temperatures, and then we kept sending samples because we wanted to see if anything changed or anything happened. Well, it sure did. It changed. It's sitting in the hot warehouse for months at a time, and then it's mailing out. It decarbs significantly, the cherry wine. So we have special instructions on the cherry wine, how we're going to do this to get our certificate of analysis. And that is, when we go to cut that plant in the field, it is, I say again, it is not a hot plant. When we cut that down, I need you to take a 4-gram sample, put it in the test tubes like they're showing you in the back, and then put it in a cooler. Real simple. Get that cooler to me. I will put that all in dry ice and ship big loads of it. If I don't take it myself to Galbraith Lab, that will give you your certificate of analysis. Okay, that will not be a hot plant if you do it properly. If you send it in a bag and get it to me in a day or two and it decarboxylates, that's not my problem. I have hundreds of thousands of these plants out there. They are not hot plants. Please follow the simple instructions and take that off right when you're cutting that plant down. That's as high as it's going to get. Then it becomes non-viable when you cut it down. That's when they want the sample. So as soon as we do that, let's cut that cherry wine, put it in there, put it in a cooler. It's an extra step that we take, but it'll be well worth it. With the high levels of the THC, we are also getting very high levels of CBD in it, and that's what we're after. I asked my botanist when we first started this, I said, here's what I want. I want the highest CBD that we can get, as close to that 0.3 without going over, and he nailed it. He gave me cherry wine. That is, if you've done any research, the hottest plant. Even a lot of the extractors, the hottest, I'm sorry, not the hottest, the highest CBD levels that they've had were 19%. They came from the cherry wine plant. So as far as going for the money, I provided you with, I think, what you want. You want the highest CBD as close to the 0.3 as you can. The box plant is not that close to the 0.3. The box plant, we can do that however you want, but if you're packing everything in ice and you have both the plants, why not put them both in a sample and put them both on ice and get them to me? All right, so now if anybody have any questions on how decarboxylation works, it's a big word, it's brand new, you haven't read about it on the internet. It happens, we use it when we cook the plant or when we put the plant in our food. We've not had this problem with hemp yet, but we are having a problem with it, just to let you know. It's not us growing it, it's not us receiving it, it's not us trimming it, it's us shipping it. Shipping is where it becomes a problem. So I don't want any of you to be liable for any of it, as well as I don't want myself to be liable for it either. So as we work our way, manipulate our way through the system here with the government, Jay Reedy was supposed to come out today as another engagement. While I'm on that subject, Jay Reedy is running for House Speaker for the state of Tennessee. If we can vote for Jay Reedy and help him get that position, he's got a law he's trying to put through right now that raises the THC Delta 9 level to 0.9. If that happens, farmers will go crazy here. Everybody will grow a lot better plants, a lot higher levels. We'll even push the threshold on the 0.9. Not that we're trying to taunt with anybody, but we're in it for the money. Everybody here is in it to make a nice chunk of money. And that's what we want to do. So I'm going to introduce you to Steve and Christy over here and let them tell you what they have to say.
Should we just come over? Is it on here? Is it on?
So, what Frank was talking about, the packs that we had in the back for you guys, those sample packs is what we want you to put your flower in the plastic bag. There are 2 packs of desiccant in there, and that'll keep moisture from forming while you're shipping your plant. You can get some of the refrigerated packs from Uline, and you can use those as a little cooler to ship your plant to us, or you can buy a 99-cent styrofoam cooler. Buy an ice pack, use one of your kids from their lunch boxes. You can ship it to us that way, and that should help. I'll let Steve speak about what happens with the heat and the...
Yeah, we're also going to work closely with Frank and actually provide some of, I got a couple examples back there where we're going to provide some of these insulated coolers that'll allow your plant, whether it's freshly cut or even a cured flower, to be transported safely to the lab. That's a very important point. We've operated, as Frank said, since 1950. We're locally, in Knoxville area, independent testing lab. We're very familiar with testing a lot of pharmaceuticals and things, and temperature control is very important for a lot of those types of samples. So it's just as important for hemp as we're finding out with this sort of decarboxylation phenomena. And it's a scientific process by which the plant makes these particular analytes or these particular molecules in the plant tissue. If you just take a look at CBD, CBD's produced as CBD in the plant. It's also produced as CBDA. It's an acid form of CBD. And what decarboxylation basically is, the CBDA, the acid group actually is removed from the CBDA, and the CBDA then therefore becomes CBD. The same thing happens with THC. There's a THC acid form. If the acid group is removed, and this type of reaction is accelerated by heat. The state knows this, the state labs know it, it's a scientific phenomenon, it's, people have studied it and in various industries, and it just so happens with these particular molecules, it's very important. The climate in Tennessee, you know, we had a pretty hot May. We had mid-90s. In Knoxville, we had a couple days 98 degrees. You know, what's the temperature, you know, outside versus what's the temperature inside your mailbox if you've got a hemp flower sitting in an envelope? What's the temperature inside a FedEx truck if they're driving around all day and it's 95 outside, or in a UPS truck? That's very important for storage of, you know, and how you actually transport. There's a lot of labs out there that will ask you to send them a sample. We'll do the test for you, but they're not concerned about how that sample actually got to the lab. So we have a very important process when the sample gets to the lab that we catalog it, that it's been received, but we also want to make sure that in transit that sample has not been tarnished. If it's a sample that you've taken off the field, we want to make sure that that's the same sample that arrives at the lab.
So we would recommend you guys ship through FedEx or UPS, where you can get a tracking number, and you can track your shipment through their websites too. Just be sure and record the tracking number that you put on the box that you send to us. And that way you can see where it is too, if it's sitting or if it's in transit. FedEx is really good about keeping that updated in my experience with them. Like Steve said, we've had a lot of experience working with the pharmaceutical companies, so we've seen how they ship their samples to us. In some cases, they will put a thermometer in the shipment with it so they can track some of the temperature as well. That, you know, I don't think y'all need to go to that extreme yet, but it is something to keep in mind for the future as you guys get bigger and grow more.
Can you mention something about confidentiality agreement that we have?
Oh, yes.
So when you guys fill out your request for analysis form, and if you haven't picked them up, they're in the back. The only person that we release the report to is the person who requested the analysis, period. That's in our catalog. That is the same for you guys as it is for any other client. We have had to have companies send us on letterhead the name of the new person before we would release any past reports, period. All the reports are confidential to the person requesting the analysis, period. It's in our non-disclosure agreements. It's in all of our catalogs. Anybody else who would ever need a copy of that report, you would have to reach out to us and authorize that person to be able to receive a copy of any of the testing that we've done for you. That's how we operate. That's just who we are, and we won't change that for anything. Your results are yours. You get to keep them, and only you know the information that's inside them. Your choice then, when you receive the certificate of analysis, is you use it how you need to use it. If you need to give a copy to Frank, you do. If you're working with any other outside processor who wants to take your hemp and make it into CBD oil or anything else, they will probably request that certificate of analysis from you. But again, it's yours, your choice to give it. Once we've tested it, the report's yours. No one else can request it.
Does anybody have any question for Galbraith?
Yes, sir?
I have a question. I've been contacted by a state rep, told me he's gonna be my inspector, he's gonna come out and cut a sample and take it. He is then gonna send that to another lab, correct? So my benefit with you, are you gonna answer that question?
Yeah, he can answer that question for you, Lloyd.
I'm a little ahead here, but what they do, if you get chosen for a sample, and there are so many growers this year, it's going to be done randomly. So you should always be compliant. But what they do is they come out and they take 8 coals. What they do is they split them vertically down the middle. So basically, you have 8 pieces of identical material. All your one side goes into one bag, all your other side goes into another bag. So you got 2 virtually identical samples. That is going to go to the Department of Agriculture's lab, and they're going to test it. Now, I'd say probably once the light cycle changes August 5th, and your days become shorter than 14 hours, your plants are going to start to bloom. Then middle of September, you're going to have large blooms. And that's really when you need to start worrying about security as well. But then you're going to harvest in October. When you call TDA to come out, you you've still got 30 days from the day they come out to harvest. But where they come in is you send your sample to them early enough that you at least get some idea of where you are on the scale of Delta 9 THC. And I can talk more about the rules and all that in a minute, but yes, so that's where they come in. It's work. You need to do third-party testing, particularly if you're growing a variety like one of the cherries that tends to be run very close to the legal limit of Delta 9.
Did that answer your question, Lloyd? All right. Anybody else? Kelly?
Does Department of Agriculture use the same transporting techniques that you're saying we should be using?
Yes, let me tell you, the Tennessee Department of Agriculture, and I work with them all the time, they do not want your sample to come in by. They're not with law enforcement. This is not some game that's being played. They understand that this is your life, that this is your livelihood, and they don't want to do anything to cause the sample to decarb on the way to the lab. What I would say is this: if you're concerned and it's 105 degrees outside, but think about this as well. Even if it's 85 degrees and the sun's shining, I had this question last year because I'm a grower, and I called Annie at TDA. I said, Annie, what if your tester comes and throws my sample on the dash of their car on a 100-degree day, and it decarbs? I said, how can I control that? And she goes, well, Joe, you're perfectly able at your own expense to buy a foam cooler, buy dry ice, whatever you want, ship it overnight, and do nothing to allow that sample. Because when they get that sample in their hands, they're not going to do anything to it to push it further towards the legal limit. They do non-heated dry. So again, heat is where decarboxylation happens. So you don't have any fear from the Department of Agriculture. All you need to do, and is it worth buying some dry ice? Is it worth buying a foam cooler? Is it worth paying FedEx, 40 or 50 bucks, to ship your package to Nashville in one day? Absolutely. Especially if you tested a month earlier, you're like, oh, I'm at 0.2. If you test and your number is anything above 0.2, call a TDA right then and say, come out and test my material. Because then you've still got, once they come out, they take their sample, as long as you're not hot, when they take that sample, you're good. Because they're not going to test you after the fact.
So I don't think the Department of Ag is looking to see, I mean, they're concerned they want us all to make it. I think what they're really looking for is to see if anybody's actually growing some real pot out there. And I'm sure they're going to try it. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it just makes sense. I don't recommend it, by the way, for the record.
Yep.
Okay. Did anyone else have any questions for Galbraith Laboratories? They'll be here. If you need to get a hold of them, you need to send a sample, contact me. I will tell you where to send it, or I will send it myself.
And we'll be at the back all night.
And thank you very much. They drove all the way up from Knoxville. A lot of people came a long ways to give you this information, per me asking them, and I appreciate that, and I'll owe them favors, but we'll figure that out another time.
Frank, question.
Sure. Yes?
Yep.
I have a question. It's not necessarily to the laboratories, but they might be able to answer it.
Sure.
And my question is more about the decarb. Give me an idea. What's the temperature and the length of time that the heat acts as a catalyst to cause the decarb, and how much decarb? And by, are we like 0.2, 0.3, like is it 0.2, 0.4? I mean, how dramatic does this exposure to heat have to be for it to really put you over?
Absolutely. We're going to let Carson answer that question.
I had 35,000 pounds in a barn biomass drying 2 years ago, and it was tested at 0.312, something like that. I kept it in there because I couldn't shuck it all. So probably about 20,000 pounds or so. So December was kind of hot. I lived till that point. That THC went from 0.312 to 0.45, 0.46, 0.47, somewhere in there.
And how much time?
That was just 2 months.
Yeah. Now I've had a plant, one of our cherry wines.
The barn was during that period.
very warm, so I remember. So I was probably gonna say about it's probably 60s maybe in the barn.
Not that one.
Not that one.
Yeah. Now, I'm obviously going to swing this over to the real professionals to know, but in our experience, what we did was we try to flower all the plants out ahead of what we sell. So the box and the cherry wine, we flowered and sent to the labs. Now, when we send it to see where it's at. So when you guys get your results, we know where you're going to be, where you should be at. What we did is we left it, we stressed some plants out to try to see if that would change any of the THCs or change any of the CBDs in it. It didn't. But stressing the plant out, we stressed it out so bad. But what I mean by stressing out is we gave it darkness when it was supposed to be in light. We put it in the light when it's supposed to be dark, trying to get it to change, seeing how much stress it could take before it would change in hermaphrodite on us. The plant never did hermaphrodite on us. It grew funny, it grew long and lanky, but it never hermaphrodited. So we left that plant, we just hung it in the warehouse, which gets about 85, 90 degrees sometimes. And it's been over the period of 2 months. That jumped from 0.32 because we didn't send it to the lab on ice the first time, so we were hot. But if we'd have sent it to the lab on ice, we wouldn't have been. We jumped from 0.32 to 0.91 in 2 months, which means I have diet weed now. What can I do with diet weed? I can sell it to states that have legal marijuana, but I'm not supposed to legally transport it out of the state. So these are battles that we're constantly fighting with as well. We don't want to burn anything down. The Tennessee Department of Ag doesn't want to see any of us fail. They're here to help us. That's why they're here. Yes, sir.
So here's the question. If we do end up with plants that are turning hot, what do we do with those plants then?
Well, we're going to have to get back to you on that. But there's several things that we can do. We can mulch them all together with the stalks and bring that down as a total mass to bring that percentage down if we grind it up fine enough in a hammer mill. We can homogenize it with other plants that are less than that, and then we hammer mill it all together. We mix it all together. Your high levels will come down with people's who has low levels. So is there a lot we can do? Yeah, homogenizing is it. That's what we want to do anyway, because we want to sell it in a large group, 100,000 pounds, 6 tons, as compared to a 10 ton. That these guys that are extracting have to clean their machines after they run each farmer through or every different product that they sell. So if we lump our biomass together, because we're all growing the same 2 plants, we lump our biomass together and we sell it to them at 100 tons, we'll move right to the front of a lot of lines. I know that, just because we're homogenized and we're in one group. By doing that, that gets us all Christmas for money. Now we can take the flower money, properly cure it, get the terpenes to activate in it, and sell a high-end flower out of Tennessee. And that's what we're going for. Now, when we get into the 0.9, raising it up to the 0.9, which is, it could happen, it might not happen. I don't know, 50-50 shot. That's huge. That's huge when you sell flower, because now we're not so concerned about decarboxylation anymore. So, and decarboxylation doesn't mean anything to the states that have medical marijuana already passed. And I believe there's 11 of them now, Illinois being the latest one. So let's defer that question back to the experts here about the decarbylation.
That's a good, what Frank says there about the states that, have legalized marijuana, whether it be medical or recreational. They were never concerned about decarboxylation of THC, because that's exactly what they want. If they've got a plant that produces a lot of THCA, what you want is that to decarboxylate so the acid form drops and your delta-9 THC goes up. That's exactly what you want in those states. The interesting thing is CBD acts the same way as THC does. So if you decarboxylate in a state that's legal for marijuana, if there's a substantial amount of CBDA in that particular crop, you're also going to see the same decarboxylation, so the CBD level will rise along with the delta-9 THC level. Just to give you an idea, there's not a lot of scientific literature that I've been able to find, and our teams at the lab have been able to find, because the academics haven't been able to get their hands on it. A lot of the government labs have not been able to get their hands on it because it's been criminalized. So we couldn't go in the labs and do R&D like we would normally be able to do with a lot of other readily accessible samples. So we haven't been able to play with it. And I come, prior to being at Galbraith, I was in the academic world for almost 15 years, academic government type lab setting, and we could pretty much work on anything we wanted to as long as we weren't sort of crossing the line for various testing things. But we didn't get into some of that stuff, and you've got like 60 years where we couldn't touch this plant, and there's a lot of work to be done there. What's out there is that if you, like for instance, we have some ovens in our lab that what we've read about is about 105 degrees Celsius. 100 degrees Celsius is where water boils. You can decarboxylate hemp, cannabis in a matter of hours at that temperature. So if you put it in an oven at 105 degrees in a couple hours, you're going to probably decarboxylate all of that acid form of all of the particular molecules in whatever plant you have. And the different strains sometimes will give you a higher level of the acid form of this analyte or a higher level of this analyte. So it just sort of depends on maybe the stresses, the environment that the plants are grown in, maybe the state, the geography, weather conditions, a lot of factors that sort of contribute to that. And I think having the ability to sort of, you basically can watch that process by, testing ahead of time, as is suggested prior to the state coming out. But it can happen in a couple of hours. And what we have not done for people that have just sent samples in the mail and have not been concerned about it on a hot day is that you don't have a temperature tracker at every point in time that a sample might sit on a dashboard or in a truck like that. And that's what we've talked to Frank about a lot, is that we've got to be real careful, because when we first got into this, we were thinking, well, they're going to be harvesting, and they're going to be harvesting at the hot part of the summer. And the plant has a really, it's really phenomenal that when the plant is viable in the ground, that these sort of things don't happen in the plant as it's actually growing. So the plant can sort of regulate itself to where it's not going to decarboxylate and such and be sort of all over the place when it's in the ground. It's when it becomes non-viable that this is a concern. As you mentioned, when you're drying and curing, maybe as the plant comes right off, the state's going to inspect it or you're going to test it before that. It's that sort of time frame that we've got to be careful with, and just to make sure that the integrity of that sample is not changed, so that that test result is a reflection of what you actually sampled at the time point that you sampled it. And that's what we're really conscious of. And what we do at the lab as well, we have a controlled environment where we store the samples so that doesn't fluctuate. We actually have I can actually log in on my cell phone and look at all of our room humidity, room temperatures. I've got controls on all of the freezers, refrigerators, and I can watch all that in the middle of the night just to make sure that something hasn't gone, in the middle of a storm. We've got battery backup power and things like that. So you got to think of almost all of the disaster scenarios when you're in the lab testing business, because the client sample is the most important thing to us, to make sure that test result is a reflection of what you sent in. And there's one more bit that's very interesting in this industry for third-party testing. There are some ways that you can test for, say, THC potency, CBD potency. There's more than one way you can do it. One of those methods involves a gas chromatograph, where you actually have an oven step in the processing of the sample on the instrument. So you inject the sample, and there's actually a heating step before the sample is actually separated and you actually do the analysis. We do not use that sort of a technology to do the cannabinoid potency or the THC potency. We basically call it a high-performance liquid chromatography-based testing mechanism, and it's a very complicated instrument. It involves separation of the particular molecules, and that is a temperature-controlled, basically, testing process. So we never subject that sample to that heat. There are some labs that want to crank samples out really fast, and they won't maybe tell you how they tested your sample. So that's also another point to consider, because you get some of these labs that want to get into this, and it's all about speed, but you also have to be careful about how you handle the analytes as well. So transport and testing is very important.
Have you done a comparison to the gas chromatograph with your liquid? Do you get the same result? Are they different? You're inferring that they give a different result.
You'll get a false positive if you have an acid form present, because you'll reconvert that acid form into the non-acid form. You'll get this. You could actually do a mass balance on all of the analytes and they'll come out, but you could add up the acid forms in the test method that doesn't heat the sample, and you could actually basically do a comparison between the methods and you'll come out with the same answer. You'll know where the acid form was decreased due to the heating step and it went into the non-acid form. Yep, you could actually do a balance on that, and they're very, very accurate techniques. They're very, very similar. Except one you subject to I think the oven temperature in that gas chromatography is somewhere around 650 Celsius. So
I can see you two need to talk about this on your own. You're using words I can't even pronounce. Right.
Yeah.
No, these are all very good questions, but way deeper than what we're trying to convey here. We're working on that. We'll keep everybody posted on it. I would love to speak with you more about, sounds like you know more about what you're talking about, and get you hooked up with these guys to answer any questions and any insight you could, because this is a brand new industry. This is the first year I've grown hemp outdoors. First time I've ever grown hemp. I've grown a lot of the marijuana in the industry in Colorado. I see a lot of similarities. The way everything's going is pretty similar, and that the way that it's sold, the way that it's processed, the way that it's dried and cured. So I figured I'd throw my hat in and we'd see where we end up, and here we are. We still have just as many questions as when we started the industry. The more we solve things, the more things open up. And thank God we have a great political party, not political party, but great political leaders leading us through this that are willing to take these steps. Tennessee has the least amount of regulations, as far as I know, in the country. Is that correct, Joe? Would you agree with me? I know Kentucky's very tough.
Any non-marijuana state.
Right, right.
Some of the marijuana states actually regulate harder than we do on hemp.
Yeah. So, I mean, I see this as our leaders saying, you know what, this is an opportunity for the farmer who, by the way, is the only profession that pays retail and sells at wholesale. We have the opportunity, and I know some of you heard me say this before, we have the opportunity to flip the script on this. We can actually buy or produce our own plants or our own seeds or our own clones, which means we bought at wholesale because we're buying from ourselves, and we sell at retail. This has never happened to the farmer before. This is the one opportunity. And I don't want to, keep pressing on the marijuana thing, but marijuana is a plant. Hemp is a plant, marijuana is a plant. And I'd go so far as to say they're even talking about mushrooms right now in Colorado. That has no bearing on us. But this is the decade of the farmer. The farmer has been getting kicked around since before World War II. This is the one opportunity we have to take this by the horns and lead a nation in something. And it's something you don't hear very often in Stewart County, Tennessee. We are on the cutting edge of something. You don't hear that a lot here. Not because we don't want to be, because we don't have these opportunities brought to light in front of us. Now we do. It would be a shame not to take advantage of this, not to further this, not to try to be an epicenter of something. We can do it, but we all have to do it together. I can't do it without you. You can't do it without me. We stick together as a group, and together we grow. That's just what our shirts say. That's our logo. Together we grow. And hemping ain't easy. So next I wanted to bring up Matt Walczyk. Yes.
Let's say, for example, we have our product tested properly. We take our sample out of the field, we put it on dry ice, we ship it, we get our results back. Everything is good. We sell that product. Some guy's got a couple ounces of it sitting on the dash of his truck. The police pull him over. They want to know what it is. They send it in for testing. It's been sitting in his 100-degree truck, and all of a sudden it tests hot. Where does our legal liability lie as a farmer?
Well, I'll let them answer this, but first of all, it's measured with, it measures lipoids. It measures lipoids in THC that are also found in hemp. So the problem the police department having is everything's testing hot for positive lipoids. Well, it's in both of them. It's just more predominant in the marijuana. They don't have the numbers. They're doing field tests. Color turns blue. It's hot. It's marijuana, even though it isn't.
Where does our legal liability lie?
Keep a copy of your license with you in your car. No
Yeah.
matter where
I'm saying
He's talking about the consumer.
I'm talking after the
He's
sale.
talking about the consumer. It's gray area.
Yeah.
I'll talk more about it.
And the guy
I
goes
was
back
like,
and goes,
I'll
oh,
tell
I
you where
wanted
that's
it. I
at.
got it
Where it is and where it's at.
goes with it.
Yeah. Well, this is the gray area that actually all these guys here and myself are working
I'll
on.
hit that, and I'll talk about where it is and where it's going. Right now, it's gray.
Go ahead, Matt.
I don't know if it made it on the news up here, but where a gentleman
Yeah, we can help out as needed,
5
yeah.
pounds of hemp flower in the passenger seat with a jacket and a beanie, and the test results seat belted in front. Well, that was yours truly, and the only thing that kept me from going to jail was the fact that I was able to sit right here and say, your field tests, the margin of error in your field tests is wider than the cutoff for the THC content in industrial hemp. So your test and your dogs are gonna hit on this. And if I hadn't almost turned it into a training exercise for them and was like, hey, this is where you need to look at X, Y, and Z to where this doesn't happen with the true criminal, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. So be very careful. They do not like to play games.
Yeah,
There is
absolutely.
still an issue with civil asset forfeiture in the state. So be very careful, have as much paperwork on you as all possible at all possible times, and do not be afraid to assert yourself and say, I know this is a legal product, I know I'm in the right, I have done everything I can to be legal, and also prove to you that I'm legal.
No, I understand that.
That's-
And
are you in?
I agree with you.
Well, the new
My
law-
question
the
is,
new-
is if it was mishandled after it was tested.
The new law that's in place that we call the Farm Bill Companion says that anything under 1.0% Delta 9, and that's not combined THC, THCA, that's not a hosted carboxylation number, that is Delta 9 only, is not going to be subject to criminal referral in the state. Now, they may try to cross-apply that and say, well, that only applies to farmers, not to the end user.
Consumers.
But, and since we're on it, I'm going to cover it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to go into the session in January, and we're going to have, all right, so we passed the smoking bill that made it expressly legal in Tennessee to smoke industrial hemp. There's, in our code, we define smoking hemp, and only children can't smoke by default. Because we applied the same language to that as we did tobacco and vaping products. So it's legal to have, it's legal to possess, it's legal to smoke. All right, so they want to put a tax on it now that's equal to tobacco, which what that is if you go, the state tax on cigarettes is 6.6% on wholesale. Well, they wanted us to go ahead and throw that on this year as soon as we passed our smoking bill, and we're not necessarily opposed to that because that legitimizes us even further. But there's two reasons we don't want to do that, that we didn't want to rush it, because first of all, the people that sell this smoking product, all of a sudden, you know, if we had passed that law, it would have taken effect today. July 1st is the day when all the legislation comes back. And we would have been in a position in this industry where we would have had to come forward with the accounting infrastructure to start collecting a 6.6% tax and remitting that tax to the Department of Revenue every day. Well, why is tobacco tax so high? Because of the draft, they say it is. I mean, they're the spoken reason, of course, you know, the government steals the money and does whatever they want with it, but the expressed cause for high tobacco, sorry, Mayor, the expressed cause, I know they would never do that in Stewart County because Jay Reedy, by God, would allow that
That's
to happen.
right.
Your next speaker, hopefully your next speaker. But anyway, so there's two, it's the healthcare burden that smoking tobacco puts on the healthcare system that we need this money to do this. Well, we're not opposed to the tax, but so hemp is neither addictive nor carcinogenic. So we know hemp is not addictive. We know hemp is not deadly, doesn't cause cancer. So we're like, okay, let's charge the tax. But the reason we didn't want to rush this bill through, because of besides the logistical nightmare that it would create, is we want to earmark the money. And part of the earmarking of the money would include providing the officers in the field a field test where they can just sample your material right there. Now, is that test accurate to hemp versus non-hemp? Not exactly. It'll test approximately 1% with a 1% margin of error. So, but if they tested it and it tested negative, you would be looking at something 2% or less. But what we know is there's a wide gulf between marijuana and hemp. There's no marijuana out there that exists in the market, in the recreational or the medical market, that's below 10% THC. So they would at least have a preponderance of evidence, meaning, yeah, this guy's not really trying to mess with me here. So we want to use that money to fund those testing kits for law enforcement. We want to use that money for grants and research that can be done in the state to promote the industry, because I mean, there's nothing the Stewart County mayor would like more than have a giant decortication plant built here, you know, and to bring, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of high-paying jobs to this economically depressed or
disadvantaged part of the state. So why would we want to put the money from a tax that's gonna collect? We estimated if we were only selling 1,000 pounds of hemp flour per day statewide, that this tax would immediately start generating $4 to $5 million a year in revenue for the state of Tennessee. That's just 1,000 pounds a day. I don't know how many thousands of pounds of tobacco get sold in Tennessee a day. I guarantee it's way more than 1,000 pounds. So we're only on the cusp of this. And because hemp is not deadly, and because it's not carcinogenic, because hemp is, it's a placebo for marijuana, for people that don't want to be stoned, that don't want to be a threat to public safety on the roads. Because listen, in states that have legal marijuana, and I'm not saying I'm not neither for nor against legal marijuana. I'm not going to take a position on it. But what I do know is that out west you can get vape pens that are 90% THC. And that's not your mom and dad's weed from Woodstock, okay? I'm here to tell you. That stuff will mess you up. So, we don't want that out there. And I think law enforcement's always been like, well, this is a slippery slope. This is where it's all going. All you want to do is normalize the use of cannabis products to make, to normalize this cannabis weed, stoned counterculture that we see in California and Colorado. Again, California and Colorado, they're sovereign states. Let them do what they want to do. We have a little bit different standard for behavior and conduct in Tennessee. So do we want, what I said to them is no, we're trying to normalize the use of cannabis products that don't make you stoned. Why is CBD oil not going to become illegal? Because let me tell you, the judge's wife and the district attorney's mom are taking CBD right now. So they're going to hear it at home, because you put CBD topical on anything, you got those receptors in your knee. It doesn't even have to go into your bloodstream. It works immediately. So people are like, where's this been all my life? Oh wait, your grandfather's grandfather made that illegal 80 years ago. And so now it's a new time, and but I wanted to get the drug testing piece. And so we would only want to create a situation where it wouldn't be admissible as evidence, but it would be where the police officer on the right side of the road could go, yes, you're intentionally breaking the law here, or no, there's not. So anything less than 2% THC is hemp. It's all hemp. So that's where we want to go with that.
Which to his question, what you're saying is that even if it was sitting on the dashboard, it wasn't going to be.
It's not going to go above 2% because there's not enough Delta 9 or THCA to take it over that pass or fail.
So then you're legal.
Yeah, 1 second.
Right, but we don't have that yet. So this summer it's a problem, but we're going to be working to have that added. Chairman Reedy's going to be trying to work to get that legislation passed, and the mayor here is going to, talk to all the other state reps and senators he knows and get them to help.
All right, I know we have another question about it. Go ahead, what was your question?
My question is, the last thing we talked about was how the county law enforcement was going to be on our side when we get ready to start transportation for
Yes. Yep.
Now, what about the state?
The state has not responded to us they're not as receptive to it as the county was. I went down and met with Frankie Gray myself. Took down the transportation order, explained to him, see if he wanted to explain to his sheriffs. He looked at it. He said, it looks legal to me. Let's go ahead and do it. You won't get any problem from us. Then the mayor went and reiterated with it, are we making sure we're going to be okay with this? And I haven't heard of one instance where everybody's pulled over. I've even had farmers go so far as to load up the back of their truck, get their transportation order, go to breakfast, and go get gas before they take their truck home with the plants hanging out of their thing. Just to push the envelope, I don't recommend we push the envelope, but to just be able to do that gives me a level of comfort where I'm okay with it. Now, when we get into the 2%, and as Joe was saying, I reiterate, the 10% and above is the marijuana. So this really wouldn't even be considered what we want to call diet weed. It will not get you high. On that note, people are different. I can smoke something and get no effect. Somebody else can smoke something that didn't get anything and just be totally wiped out. So it's all on what your body can handle. Nanograms. This is measured in nanograms. When you do tinctures, THC, CBD tinctures, the nanograms are very low. The nanograms I have in my body would probably be around 1,000. And somebody else that doesn't do it, that goes to maybe you go to a rock and roll concert, your nanograms will be 50. So if you're worried about taking this tincture and coming up hot in one of your urinalysis at work, take it to the next level. If you don't smoke marijuana and you're just taking a tincture, challenge it. Get the blood records, get the blood results, get the nanogram levels, you'll get your job back. If you smoke marijuana and think you're going to be able to use CBD, say that you're taking them to get out of a ticket or get out of anything, you're mistaken. So if you don't do marijuana and you get busted for THC levels in your body, push it. Go to the doctor, get the full blood result. You'll get your job back. Okay, anybody have any other questions? Robin?
Frank, I would like to add to that. We're currently rewriting our personnel policy in Stewart County to include credit for someone who is maybe using CBD. So we want to have the wording in there. We don't want to promote the growth of the hemp plant
Right.
and then have our people in our
That's
county
the best news I've heard all day.
So we want to make sure that that wording is there to include the CBDs.
You guys heard it from the mayor himself. Joe, did you have something to say?
Yeah, we're running a bill, and we had, our House sponsor failed to file it timely last year, but we really needed to do more research. Right now, and this affects county contracts, this affects any business out there that does government contracting. There's a thing called the Tennessee Drug-Free Workplace. And if you're tested in Tennessee, the level right now is 50 nanograms per milliliter. Now, I can't even begin to describe how small of an amount that is. It's basically pass-fail, because 50 nanograms, a nanogram is 1/billionth of a gram, and a milliliter is 1/30th of a 1 ounce bottle.
So do the math.
So 1/50 billionth of a gram in a milliliter. What is what your blood has to test right now for the state of Tennessee to say you failed. So what we're doing right now is we got the experts working on what is a suitable level of nanograms, or we might even want to take it up to micrograms, which are millionths instead of billionths. You know, we need to get this to parts per million, not parts per billion. And what would a person who has slow metabolism, that you know, if they were taking something that was the maximum level, 0.3% delta 9, what would that look like? How does that translate into urine or blood? And that's the bill we're gonna pass, because then only if you're in the military or you're a truck driver where you're federally controlled, and they're probably gonna work on that on the federal level, but at least in the state, in the counties and the municipalities, we'd be covered. And then you could take that test, and you could take plenty of that CBD oil, the full spectrum. Mm-hmm. The only advice, and I mean, I'm not a big proponent of CBD isolate products, but if that's all you can take, you just have to take a whole lot more of that where there's no THC in it to get any effect from it. But if you're on probation, if you're being tested for child custody, if you have a job that tests, if you have a child that's an athlete playing for Stewart County High School's football team, you got to be really careful with the full spectrum products right now. But like I said, we will run a bill that some bills take effect July 1st, others you could put in there that it takes effect immediately upon the governor's signature, and that's one we're going to run in January and hope that we have enough goodwill with the legislature to get that, just push that right through. Because it was supposed to be done this year and it didn't get done.
I know, right?
Well, I'll talk about marijuana for a bit. Marijuana growers and the marijuana industry see the hemp industry as a threat. It's not kumbaya, because they have spent the cost per plant, the footprint, the seed to sale tracking, the RFID chip that has to go with each plant, the infrastructure and the tracking that goes into each marijuana plant is probably between $50 and $100 a plant just in overhead. Imagine if you had to pay $50 a plant for the 5,000 plants you got in your field out here. Couldn't do it, could you? Not even the mayor could afford to finance you in that. So, well, I'm just guessing, but but seriously, so they see themselves as the only true medicine. And until this year, California passed a law where you couldn't take hemp-derived CBD. You could only take marijuana-derived CBD because it was protectionism, and they undid that because they saw the error of their ways. First time ever for them, but they got that, and so there's competition there because we can produce CBD for cents on the dollar compared to what they can produce it for, unless they're in hemp, unless they're growing hemp as hemp. So it's not as clear as it looks. Do I think marijuana should be legalized? Well, I have 3 13-year-olds. I have triplets. And do I really want to live in a world where recreational marijuana is legal? I mean, I don't. I mean, it's very strong. And do I care if you get stoned? No, I don't care what you do on your personal time in your own home. All of that. I mean, it's a natural rights issue as much as it is a legal issue. But again, I mean, the culture is very different, and things change. It's like when you open the borders, your culture changes. When you make marijuana legally, recreationally, your culture changes. So, you got to be careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Does anybody else have another question before I introduce the next speaker? All right, next speaker is going to be Matt. Matt, how you say your last name? Wycheck. Walczyk, close enough.
You guys still hear me back there and everything? Good to go. All right.
Well, let me introduce you a little bit.
Please.
Matt is with the SAFE Act of Tennessee Medical Trade Association. He used to work with Red, White, and Hemp, and he's recently instituted an adapted version of the Military Agro-Business Development Team strategy in Tennessee to help rebuild de-stressed counties in Tennessee. Now, I hate to say it, but we are a de-stressed county, are we not, Mayor?
We're tier 3 county.
Then we are going to fix that. 1 year, we will turn that around, and we will be a hell of a story. Go ahead, Matt.
All right, so as Frank was saying, I do a lot of consultation work and getting different businesses started in different sectors of cannabis, whether the medical marijuana side or the industrial hemp side. It's some states where recreational is legal. I work there as well. If any of you guys are prior service, if you've ever done anything with Hearts and Minds, village stabilization operations, agribusiness development teams, anything working with the locals on, hey, this is how you institute an economy here instead of joining ISIS or Al-Qaeda or somewhere else, that is the same strategy we've implemented here in the Tier 4 distressed counties. As sad as it is to say, some of those counties on paper are not that far off from some of the places we've served in, as far as the economic distress level, I guess we'll call it. But either way, worked with several organizations. The Safe Access Tennessee and Tennessee Medical Cannabis Trade Association were more so the hearts and minds aspect of it, while the Red, White, and Hemp and current consultation efforts are, well, more of working with what we've got. When the overall effort is to increase your voter turnout, community cohesion, and tax revenue, you work with what the legal framework allows you to. In essence, for those of you that weren't prior service, the whole Hearts and Minds strategy really focuses around on financing what that community wants to have happen. So what me and my partners will do is we'll find a charitable organization, domestic violence shelter, VFW Post is something that we've had really good success with across the state. but find a local cannabis organization to make regular contributions to them. It helps the cannabis organization with their marketing, as well as helps the organization get a stable revenue source. Something as simple as a $2,000 a check or $2,000 a month check will save a VFW post. What's that VFW post do? Turn around and keep, one of the 22 veterans a day from shooting himself. And the more of the smaller organizations we can get in, the more communities we can stitch back together. The more communities we stitch back together, the more tighter we can be as a state, and the more that we can take control of our own destiny without somebody else trying to tell us, we think you need to do this, or you need to pay us so we can do this for you. The more of it we do ourselves, the better off we'll be in the long run. And I just try and help people exploit the vertically integrated business model and make that happen for them. So, thank you.
All right, next speaker is my favorite speaker of all the speakers that I've seen in the hemp industry, and that's going to be Carson Nation, my good brother. He is a farmer. He's a dirt farmer just like the rest of us. Doesn't have big fancy words like decarboxylation, but he sure damn knows about every damn aspect of this plant. He's probably forgot more than I've learned. So we're going to get Carson wired up here real quick. I know everybody's probably thinking this is crazy. We're growing diet weed. We're going to get taxed through the Yahoo. Marijuana's coming down the pipe. Nothing's going to happen overnight. Nothing's going to happen fast. We do have a great golden opportunity here, and we're all on course. The 500,000 plants that we have out are in the ground. So I've completed phase one of our three-phase process. Phase one being get the plants to the farmer. Phase two being this is your phase to grow it properly and dry it properly. And phase three would be to get it to us, process it, cure it, and sell it. Yes, sir.
Back to that whole state trooper question,
Okay.
That's my whole issue there. I see them up and down this road.
They're around. They obviously take precedence over any county jurisdiction. I haven't heard any problems with them. I haven't had the chance to even corner one of them to say, hey, what's your guys' thing on this? The troopers are pretty good guys. My father's a retired state trooper. My mother's here. He would have probably understood something like this. When I ask him about it, he says, yeah, as long as there's no big uprising or a lot of people complaining about it, which I haven't heard one complaint about hemp here from anyone yet. We're green. There's no downside to it. I challenge you to come to a downside for hemp. Anything that can be made out of hemp. From Silicon Valley to the chips, to injected plastic mold products that China makes out. So these tariffs that everybody's complaining about with you, this is a blessing for us. This is an opportunity to pull up our bootstraps and get back to work. You want to start your own business, you don't want to work for somebody else, this is a great time to start a business. There's probably, I'm going to say 10,000 opportunities that people can do. We have stock. We need to find out somebody who can do something with the stock that we'll be throwing away. Can we mulch it up into additive? Absolutely. Can I do it? I don't have the time for that. Let's step somebody up. Let's start mulching this up into animal amended beddings. There's a ton of things we can do in the hemp industry. Are you all set, Carson? All right, we'll let Carson speak now because, man, I love listening to this guy talk. Go ahead, Carson.
Well, thank you so much, and thank y'all for letting me be here in Tennessee. This is one of my favorite states. I come here, and I'm actually going to be here on the 13th in Jackson. So if you're around Jackson, I'm going to be doing something for the Tennessee Hemp Industries Association. So I'm Carson Nation. If you don't know me, check me out on Facebook. A lot of farmers throughout the years, friend request me, send me pictures of their plants or so on and so forth. I try to help farmers to get the maximum amount of results for their first year. Some people have been watching me, and probably helped several thousand farmers now in the last 5 years because I've been in the hemp program for 5 years. I've been growing cannabis for a few years, for legal reasons, we'll just say for a few years. Been to California, been to Colorado, worked with Cannabis Cup winning teams for Granddaddy Perp and some other stuff. Came back to Kentucky. We don't have the tier 3 or tier 4 stuff, but we have 25 of the top 50 poorest counties in the United States. We're right behind Mississippi. Coal mines are dying down, so on and so forth. So I got into the hemp industry early on when a lot of people didn't want to get into it. I've lost a lot of money up until this point. If you've been into the hemp industry for this long, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like I said, check me out on Facebook, Carson Nation. You're more than welcome to feel free to call me, ask me questions. You can also see little tidbits about what I'm doing in the fields or what you should be doing in the fields, or connections to, like, for instance, one of my friends, Oregon Biomass, some of the best cultivars. We've been working together. We're going to be working with Frank too, trying to provide some of the best genetics for y'all next year and stuff like that. But other than that, I'm going to just talk a little bit about cover crops. That's what you want me to. So, cover crops are one of the biggest things that I've noticed that saves hemp farmers. Plastic's great, don't get me wrong, it all depends on your soil, but in Kentucky, sometimes the plastic with the rain can cause a lot of diseases in hemp fields. A lot of people lost a lot of hemp last year, molds, diseases, and stuff like that. But cover crops are one of my biggest things, and if you get on Facebook, you'll see that I talk a lot about cover crops. So, for instance, we're doing interseeding of clover in between our clones this year. I'm usually planting in early May, but unfortunately it rained so much this year I didn't get my plants out until last week. So all my clover that I spent all that money on pretty much washed away. This year, actually, I'm not like a lot of you farmers. Real quick, I just want to see how many are growing 2 to 10 acres here.
We're all pretty much under 4.
All right, good. Thank you. Because a lot of places I go, a lot of new farmers, especially in this industry, they're chasing dollar signs, 100 acres, 200 acres. I had a job offer for 2,000 acres in Oklahoma this year. So this guy never farmed a day in his life, just a banker. So I'm glad y'all are doing that. This is going to be a little bit easier. Weeds are going to be a big issue, especially after all this rain. So there's not too much you can do at this point of the year. We're getting really, really hot. So anything that you put out in the field right now, germination rate's going to be pretty low, clovers and stuff like that. But this fall, I would like to come back, if it's okay with Frank, and talk to y'all a little bit about custom cover crops and what mixes that we use based on your soil types. And if I could get some basically soil types of your plots, your counties and stuff, we can come up with custom. Yes, question.
So I got a question. So right now with all this rain and everything, we've got a huge problem with weeds.
Pigweed, Johnson grass, stuff like that. Honestly, cultivating is your best. You can try some clover, but if it turns 95, 96, 97, it's just going to fry in the field at that point. There are some farms experimenting with some stuff. We're experimenting with a California variety of poppy. So poppies are a natural attractant to parasitic wasps. So for caterpillar issues later on in the season, if this is your first year, you're definitely going to be cussing the caterpillars come September. August, September, you're just going to get mad and just cuss. But that also goes back to cover crops, beneficial cover crops. We'll talk, if I come back, we'll talk about rape seeds. We'll talk about alfalfa. You should actually go check out something. I was noticing in their brochure, they have an alfalfa meal. I use that a lot, especially right now after all the rain, to promote a lot of root growth. So we can get bigger and better plants for bloom. You can use bloom fertilizers during veg. I know a lot of people, would tell you, no, that's preposterous, but it's actually a really good root builder. But other than that, we'll talk about rapeseeds, clovers, turnips, basically everything based on your soil type. Other than that, I don't want to take too much time. I'll answer general questions if anybody has anything. Anybody have any questions about anything?
As far as tracking parasitic wasps, you said poppies, marigolds. I read some things about that.
Correct.
Anything else? The poppies do better now. Like my clover, when I planted it early, the first rows that I planted it in, it's all up and it looks fantastic. But once it got to the 90-degree mark, the last 6 rows, they're basically like a third of it germinated.
So the only thing that we noticed really, and this is not going to probably be beneficial for you, we do commercial tomatoes. So we grow approximately 15,000 heirloom tomato plants. So we get a lot of horned caterpillars. So we get a ton of parasitic wasps. So that means no matter, they just move over to the hemp because we plant right next to each other and they take care of it. But we're finding out poppies. There are a few other stuff. We're trying something right now called scorpion weed, but that's not really for parasitic wasps. And that will keep everything and everybody out of your hemp field because the oil will actually burn your skin. Yeah, it will actually burn. Yeah, It's terrible. I mean, it really is some terrible stuff. It's like going through stinging nettle, just worse burning sensation. It's pretty bad stuff. But other than that, we're trying different experiments. We're using, we tried the whole raw, and 5 years ago we tried the raw, and there's a lot of people saying raw now and plant raw. But personally, if you have clay soil, I don't recommend raw. I do a lot of legumes, a lot of hairy veggies, Australian winter peas, alfalfas. Again, alfalfas, it's pretty cool. If you look at the benefits of alfalfa, one of the benefits of composting alfalfa releases a phosphorus root builder. The chemical is actually slipping my mind right now. It actually puts on a huge, massive root system. And if you mix, potassium silicates, micos, and some other stuff, you can really get massive root systems. And that will give bigger yields, bigger buds, and bigger CBD content. The biggest problem I see with a lot of new farmers, they overcompensate with fertilizers. So once it comes to bloom, their THC just spikes, or their bloom patterns are messed up. There's good foxtailing and bad foxtailing, and bad foxtailing is because you give it way too much nitrogen right before bloom, and you get the stem and little bloom and stem and little bloom and stem and little bloom. You don't get solid yield. So, I try to tell people you can mitigate a lot of your fertilizers with the proper cover crops. Last year, my average CBD in one variety was 14 to 16%. Average THC was under 3. I had a couple over 3. But we didn't feed that often. We probably fed maybe once during veg and once during bloom. So.
Where would you say is the best place to get organic alfalfa seed?
No, I don't really do the organic, certified organic seed. I just put it all on the ground. Soil's a huge buffer, especially if you use humic acids and stuff. Humic acids can buffer away from some of those harsh chemicals if there is. But honestly, you're going to be paying $2, $3 a pound. And it's not going to really make a huge difference. I mean, if you have to have it for organic certification, then go ahead. But, honestly, my family's been doing some kind of organic certified farming for years. And right now, it's a huge, I'm seeing it getting more commercialized and more commercialized. It's just becoming diluted. So, I just get you some hairy vetch, get you some alfalfa, get some Lespedeza. Some other farmers in here who probably know Lespedeza, or maybe it's just a Kentucky thing, but just get you some good cover crops. Rapeseeds are really good. Anything in that cabbage family, it can help biofumigate the soil once you're composting down. I give a lot of my credit for the last 2 years because we've had so much rain. Last year, if anybody's Facebook friends, you noticed I had 29 inches of rain in a month. So my whole fields were flooded, and my plants actually lived. I only lost 40 plants, but I don't have any of those soil-borne diseases because every year it's been so wet. I've been trying to use cover crops that will naturally biofumigate my soil. So a lot of cabbages, rapeseeds, turnips, stuff like that. So, and alfalfa on top of that. Any other questions? Well, thank y'all so much for having me. Yes? So I didn't do plastic last year. I did plastic the year before. No, I'm sorry. I take it back. We did do a little plastic last year. We had so much rain. It was creating a lot of root diseases, a lot of root issues.
So wet under plastic.
Correct. We had better crops. We had better crops just using clover, interseeding, and then coming in there with some kind of aeration drag or something, kind of get some roots. If it rained, kind of break up, because that the clays will set up like concrete. So if you can give good oxygen to the roots. And that's another thing. I know some people maybe in this part of Tennessee have done no-till. See, no-till, I get the whole no-till conserving soil, but cannabis really likes, hemp. Hemp really likes a fluffy soil. If you can give it a nice loam soil, and I'm seeing that a lot in Kentucky. A lot of the farmers have called me. I've probably been to 155 farms in the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. Every farmer, same story. My plants have been in since beginning of the rain, and they're still only this big. It's because, you got plastic, even though it'll pack it down, you got clay. So all that clay is just packing down. Those roots they can't go anywhere. So they're not expanding, and they're drying out. So cover crops will help a lot breaking that up, turnips, rapeseed, alfalfa. I mean, a lot of the alfalfa has a huge, deep taproot. The Amish up and around me, they grow a lot of alfalfa for their pumpkins because they say it cleans the soil. And I learned that years ago, and actually I thank them for that because that gives me my best hemp crop ever. And now they're going to kill me in my hemp crop this year because they're growing hemp for the first time this year. And
Where do you live at?
I'm in central Kentucky. Ari, do you know any of them from Hart County? Yes, around Hart County. So.
They have a community of 3,000 we need to tap into.
Oh yes, we're
They
actually
got employees
trying to do
forever.
Ohio too, up at Homestown, Ohio. We're trying to do that
they're
too.
big in Ohio.
But thank y'all so much again, and like I said, you can contact me on Facebook and catch me at Jackson, and hopefully at Jackson we will also have some other cool stuff, maybe some free fertilizers and stuff like that.
Yeah, July 13th, there's an event coming up that you and Joe are going to be at, right?
Yeah, you're coming to Jackson.
I'll be there.
Okay, so July 13th, where's it at? It's like
Jackson,
Jackson
Tissy.
State Community College.
Great, plug it, Joe.
Yeah. What I'll do is first thing. All right. So, how many of you are growing? How many of you are members of the Tennessee? Of those growing, how many are members of the Tennessee Hemp Industries Association? Okay. Well, so I've been working for you for free for 4 years now, just to let you know that, and it's time to stop this case. I'm not gonna, I think you can see that I'm like a between the eyes kind of guy. That doesn't always help me. The only place I kiss ass is at the legislature. Because those are those votes. Do I need to be mic'd up? Yes.
Yeah, let's mic him up. This is going to be
Any
good.
of the questions before that I'm very loud. This is strictly for the camera.
Yeah.
Strictly for the camera.
Yeah. They can hear you plenty. Arthur Lewis, did you get your last plants in today? Did you plant your last plants today? Then we officially got all the plants in the ground, I think, that we need to get in. So thank you. How they look? Yeah, I know. Hemping ain't easy, buddy.
Real quick, somebody was asking earlier about the state police, so let me just tell you why he's doing this. So when I first started, I got pulled over by the Kentucky State Police with about 3,000 to 4,000 pounds in a U-Haul truck. I was sitting on the side of the road for about 2 hours until Doris Hamilton. Some people know Doris, and some people don't. She's a lovely lady. And she actually had to come and straighten the mess out. Moral of the story is make sure you keep your license on. Oh, and another thing, if your employees are harvesting, make sure you put like a little tag on them that has your license number, because a lot of my guys got harassed by the state police last year at McDonald's. Because, I mean, straight up, they smell like they walked out of California. They got like some haze on them, and it's smelling pretty good. It's good. Oh, and also, if you wear boots like this is the other reason I tell people to keep their license in their car. Wear boots like this and you're shucking your barn, the buds stick to the bottom of your feet. Well, the police already know me very well in my county, so they already know if they pull me over and they find cannabis in my car, it's more likely hemp. So it's really fun for me, but yeah, usually I have buds sticking on my floor, and just make sure you clean your car out, or at least stick your license in there and say, hey, this is hemp. Yeah, go ahead.
On the note of cars and everything, if you drive your daily driver vehicle, you don't have just a set farm truck, if you get pulled over and a dog hits on your car, be sure to tell them that, hey, I work at a hemp farm, because that dog will leave muddy paw prints and little nail holes in all of your seats in that car. I don't know, just, it wasn't 2,000 or 3,000, 4,000 pounds.
Oh, sure.
They ordered it from North Carolina. I drove it back through to Lewisburg, Tennessee in the course of one night. Got to the dispensary, stayed, the picture was a 5 pound. It was just like, hey, be friends to law enforcement.
I can just work on the outside. It doesn't have to be on the inside. Nobody cares. Not like I'm on the news.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. Everybody else has been like this. Just keep it the same. There you go.
All right.
Pounds of cannabis next to you, and law enforcement
Tess.
just looking through the window.
Tess, can you hear me?
I want to bring up a point he had to call the sheriff or somebody coming in trying to raid his farm, they could, as the call comes out, they see in the notes that it is a hemp farm, and they already are aware that you're there, your products have been verified. And then somebody's trying to rob you because they think it's freaking marijuana and it's not. But he brought that up to me today, and I never did think about it until he brought it up. So something you might want to do is have him come out, call your local sheriff. I'm going to do it. I'm gonna have him come out and look at my stuff, see my license, see my movement order. Here the deal is, put that under my address. If I have to call you, I'm gonna call you. And I want you to know when you get here, I'm not that big marijuana field. Somebody tries to steal my hemp, and, you know, I'm going to defend myself if I have to, but I'm just going to politely tell them, leave. But I'd rather the sheriff know it's there and see that it's legal rather than having a deputy show up and not have an idea about what's going on.
Actually, it's often as simple as just calling the dispatcher, because they'll just put up something next to where they sit, and so-and-so's Joe's growing 5 acres of hemp on Bloodworth Road. And that way, if they get a call about it or anything like that, they know. But yes, he's absolutely right. Handle law enforcement on the front end. And let me talk about law enforcement for a minute. 80-90% of them support what you're doing. The vast majority of them. Let's talk about what police do for a living. The police will take a bullet for you. They'll pull you out of a burning car to save your life. They're by and large, vast majority, just like the vast majority of hemp farmers, they're good people. However, there are bad actors in the hemp industry. There are bad actors in law enforcement, and there are some out there that get, they're just a little anxious. And, I lobby for this industry, and, the seizure and forfeiture programs are an unconstitutional violation of private property rights, basically. And it's so bad. And here's the problem with it. If somebody's running a meth lab in their house, I support the police taking their property and selling it all. But what I don't support is somebody that's smoking a joint going down the road, puts that roach in their ashtray, and then they get pulled over, and that person owns a $3,000 car, but it would cost them $5,000 in legal bills to get that car back. So here's how it works. They seize your property, you go to court. They don't even have to give it back. They can say you were using it. All they have to do is suspect that you were using it in the commission of a crime, and then they can sell it. Well, they sell it, and because they can't even take the money. They have to send it to Washington, have it laundered, and then they ship it back here in the form of a grant. Did you know that? Did you know that when the judge takes somebody's property, that it's not even, it's got to go to Washington. So 80% of that approximately comes back to the seizing jurisdiction. So we've been running a bill. So maybe third time's a charm. Tennessee has a D- in the scorecard for forfeiture law. So it's bad. And I don't know if anybody gets an F or not. I can't remember, but we're at the bottom. And what we've been trying to do, and we largely use it as a bargaining chip, because any chink in the armor they see is a threat to the entire sort of house of cards that runs this program. Because we have God-given rights. Our rights don't derive from Washington. They don't derive from the Tennessee legislature. They derive from our Creator. And all men are created equal. And we're all entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So, we have a constitution for a reason. It's not a living and breathing document. It's the supreme law of the land. And it says you have a right to due process. You have a right to privacy of your person and your papers. You have all of these rights that already existed before the Constitution was written, before the Magna Carta was written. God gave those rights. And it's not for government to take away. So don't ever let them attack you on the premise that, well, government says so. Bullshit. Okay? Sorry, children. I'm sorry, folks. The Constitution is sovereign. You're sovereign. So don't ever let anybody take your rights away from you. All right, so what does the TNHIA do and why should you be a member? First thing I'll say is if you're on Facebook, go to Facebook and like us. We got 14,000 followers on Facebook. All you got to do is go to Facebook and key in Tennessee Hemp Industries Association. It'll pop up like. Okay, well, because of the corruption in Washington, D.C., we're now, because we wanted to promote a fundraiser for our PAC, and because it had a picture of a cannabis leaf on it, we're in Facebook prison for life. We can't purchase ads. Now, they haven't shut us down. They haven't done that, but we can't purchase Facebook advertising to promote our events. So I say to our followers, liking and sharing our posts a reflex. Just do it, share it, get it out there because people need to know the information. So we generally meet the state chapter. Now the one that Carson's going to be speaking at next week, we've just started a satellite chapter in Jackson, a regional chapter. We've got one in Chattanooga. We've got one in Johnson City. But we're trying to get it out there. We used to have these meetings in Murfreesboro at MTSU, and we'd be lucky, 3 years ago, we'd be lucky if 15 or 20 people showed up. Maybe 30 sometimes, really, if people had no conflicts. Now, I mean, we get at least 150 people, maybe 200 to our monthly meetings. Our monthly meetings are held at Tennessee State University in Nashville on the Ag campus there, on the second Friday of every month from 7 to 9 p.m. And these meetings are announced on our Facebook page. So get on there, follow us, start, friending people that, and whatever. So our next meeting, we've been doing panel discussions like this one there, but really now that plants are going in the ground, this month is going to be more specifically about nutrients, soil inoculants, pest control, weed pressure, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be dealing with that on a very in-depth level. We'll have some speakers, and next month it'll be something else. So we're going to go because we had 225 licensed growers in 2018, and we got close to 3,000 in 2019. That's a 12-fold increase. I don't know if anybody has ever seen something grow that fast like it has here, and the reason is because Tennessee has a regulatory environment for hemp that's second to none globally. We have a legislature that approves, we have a governor that approves, and we have a Department of Agriculture that approves. And again, like I said before, there's no false doors or trap doors for you to follow it through with TDA. They're trying to help you, and they're there to help you. So follow the rules, do the right thing, and you should be fine. Okay, so sort of the history, how I got involved in this. In 2016, I was hired by some people privately to lobby a bill to allow research at universities in Tennessee, public or private, on hemp, and actually cannabis up to 0.6% is a law we passed. But that law was one of the requirements of that law is that the DEA would have to issue the researching university a permit to do the research. Guess what? 2 years, 3 years later, they're still waiting for that permit to show up in the mail. Oh, the permit's in the mail. No, it's not. So that has never happened. So, I spent an entire even though I won, I lost. So 2017 came around, and a guy named Jay Miller, he's your best friend. He's the general counsel now. He's been promoted by Commissioner Hatcher to general counsel of TDA. He was just a staff lawyer at TDA, and he came to me and he said, Joe, I've read this farm bill, and one thing we know, it's legal for Tennessee farmers to grow hemp. But what we're not sure of is that it's legal for you to sell it to anyone, and we're not sure it's legal for the consumer to possess the product. So we had those two problems. The third problem is that we couldn't get good genetics, high CBD genetics, because the DEA had made it impossible for you could only bring seed in from another country. You couldn't transport it from state to state. Actually, Kentucky helped us with that because they brought in a bunch of seed from overseas. The feds seized the seed. The state of Kentucky sued the DEA in federal court and won and got all the seed back. Well, so we passed this bill that allowed us to bring in genetics from other states as long as that state had a hemp program. So those seed, mostly from Oregon, some from Colorado, those are the two states that have really sort of led on the genetic development side. Also, a lot of states are requiring that you use certified seed. Now that's good in one respect if it's been through all the vetting and everything to show that it produces the same characteristics after so many generations, then it becomes a certified seed. But the problem was, it'd been illegal for 80 years, so nobody had any certified seed. So how are you supposed to grow a crop? So we have we're allowed to grow feral varieties of hemp. As long as they're hemp, we can grow them. So that we did that. We took care of the two pieces of, we wrote a piece in the 2017 bill that said a person could consume any topical or ingestible industrial hemp product below 0.3% Delta 9 THC, and the finished product was legal. Well, okay. So 2017, we passed that bill. We had all these great new things. Guess what? Guess when the legislature ends? It ends in May. So nobody had any of those seeds. Nobody could grow any of those genetics because it was already too late to source that stuff. So really, you're not far behind if you hadn't grown before, because 2018 was the first year in earnest that we could grow these things. And I don't know if you caught this in the news. In March of 2018, there was this thing called Operation Candy Crush in Murfreesboro, where they went in and they seized product in cash from 30 stores in Rutherford County. They took all the product and all this stuff, and there were people, there were legitimate business people in Rutherford County running convenience stores, running these little dispensaries, things like that. The DA had even cherry-picked a judge thinking that this judge would rule in their favor. The judge sits in there, he reads the law. He goes, it's not clear. Well, he goes, what's clear is that CBD, even though CBD is just a molecule, right? CBD from hemp is legal, but CBD from marijuana is not illegal. So the burden of proof is on the district attorney to prove that the CBD was sourced from marijuana and not from hemp. Well, it's just a molecule. They couldn't prove it. So judge is like, I'm going on vacation. I'll be back next week, and when I get back, I want this resolved. Turns out that the assistant DA in Rutherford County had been sanctioned by the Board of Professional Responsibility, which is 3 different times for ethical violations. And he had been released by the Davidson County DA, and he was hired by the DA in Rutherford County, I guess because he was a big earner. I don't know what, with that whole forfeiture, go grab it all, go grab everybody's stuff. Let me tell you something, until that day, law enforcement in this state had never given anybody one piece of their property back for any reason. So hemp is not only, revolutionary is a strong word, transcendental, transformative to society for environmental reasons, for medicinal reasons, for food reasons. It's also transcendental for the restoration of your civil rights. So we got that passed, and well, so then, and this is Reedy helped me in 2017. He came onto the scene. Reedy has been awesome. You guys give Reedy contributions when he runs for office. Give Reedy, Reedy's there for you. Reedy helped us get that bill passed in 2017. He helped us through that moment. And then what they tried to do is they tried after that. So instead of just letting the court rule and letting all that go on, law enforcement's people in the state legislature tried to protect the DA in Rutherford County by stripping out all the consumer protections that we put in the law in 2017. So we fought and fought and fought and fought and fought to the very last day, the very last meeting, the very last conference committee to defeat them rewriting the groundbreaking legislation we passed the year before. So this is as much defense as it is offense. I mean, we're constantly struggling to get these things in place. Okay, well, we did it, but that was so that was ground zero for once I told everybody, I had people call me, hey, I'm ready to open up a CBD flower dispensary. When do I start? I go, you better wait until the gavel's down and the legislative session's over, because otherwise you're at a huge risk of them using you as an example of why all this should be overturned. So June 2018, you had all these stores start popping up, all the CBD stores that you start, well, because they knew that the Rutherford County District Attorney wasn't going to do anything because he just lost. So, and then everybody in other counties, they start looking around going, hey, look what they're doing in Rutherford County. They're selling hemp flower to people. They're selling CBD oil to people. They're doing all this stuff. So then now they just start, now the state has to start looking at this as, well, this is a revenue source. We're selling tons of this stuff. A lot of people are coming here from other states to buy it because they can't get it in their state, and we're generating all this tax revenue, and besides we're helping farmers. Okay, let's talk about the farmer. I mean, when I came into town, I drove across the bridge and I looked to the right over there and I saw a big field of soybeans. Well, except the half of the field that was covered with water. The guy that owns that isn't in here, is he? Okay, I'm sorry. But anyway.
That's public land.
Okay, so the city is losing. Okay, so there's crop insurance for soybeans, which is coming. If you want to buy it for hemp, it's going to be extremely expensive, but you got all this risk in soybeans, corn, cotton, all these traditional row crops, and you might be lucky if you get $300 an acre for them if you do a good job. Hemp, I don't know, $15,000 maybe, $20,000 an acre, maybe more, maybe way more, just depending on how good you got it. But okay, so don't get too starry-eyed, because what's going to happen is we got 12 times more growers than we had last year. We don't know what the global capacity for CBD is. We just don't know how big it's going to get. And my dad and my grandfather, they're farmers. I mean, if you shake my hands, you'll know that I hadn't done a whole lot of farming because my hands are soft as a baby's bottom. But what they always said is don't sell cattle between Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day, because everybody needs money before Christmas and everybody needs to pay off their debts after Christmas. So the price is going to go down. So the question is when do you sell? You might want to sell enough to make yourself whole early if you're having, if you're trying to, if you had to borrow money or spend don't gamble your life savings or your children's college fund on this crop. Please do not, because it's like Bitcoin. I mean, there's a lot of promise there, but have you ever raised it before? Is there any data? So just be careful out there with your money, okay? Be careful with how much you're spending. It's expensive to grow hemp. Start medium and small, and I think I heard the average crop was 2 to 4 acres. That's perfect. That's about as much as you can grow. I mean, with average equipment and average amount of labor and all those things, because I'm a small hemp farmer. I mean, I grew about 6 acres last year. So don't get in over your head. It's not a pie in the sky. We don't know what, but still, right now, CBD is priced by the percentage point per pound. Percentage point of CBD, dollars per percentage point per pound. Right now, if you had a bunch, it'd be worth $4 per percentage point of CBD per pound. So if you grew 10 acre, if you grew 1,000 plants per acre, got 1,000 pounds per plant, you got 10% CBD, that's 1,000 pounds of plant material per acre at 4% per pound, that's $40 a pound. You get $40,000 an acre gross on what you grew last year if you were selling it now. That number is probably right at harvest in November is probably going to be $1.50, maybe $2. I don't know. But still, that's $20,000 an acre, $15,000 an acre compared to soybeans, which you're lucky if you make $300 an acre. So even if the price is less than half of what it is now, it's still the best opportunity the American farmer's ever had. I live in Gallatin, Tennessee. What we're dealing with is urban suburban sprawl. And anybody that's got a farm in Gallatin that doesn't have a subdivision on it is battling with whether you sell the family farm and quit farming or not. And I don't want to, we need some farms around there. We need a little bit of green space. The deer have nowhere left to go where I live. I live in a subdivision, and I have 5 or 6 deer in my yard at any given time because there's nowhere left. But so how do you monetize that? Isn't it time that the family farmer be able to not just service debt, not just pay equipment on, pay for payments on equipment or payments on land or, we have a unique opportunity. And what I would say about CBD is intermediate term, this is going to go to row crop farming. CBD itself is. However, there's 200 cannabinoids in cannabis, in hemp. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a whole lot of craft farmers and stuff growing genetics that express more CBG. CBG is the next one, it seems like, and then CBC and CBN. And so we're sort of in a unique, and also we talk about the regulatory environment behind CBD. There's nothing that the FDA can do to prevent you from selling full spectrum cannabis oil because it existed as a product in the 1880s and 1890s. Hashish oil is what it was called then, and they sold it in the Sears and Roebuck catalog. So 1993 is when they passed the Food Supplements Act federally and started controlling all these things. So if you had a marketable product that existed before then it's grandfathered in. So all your hemp oils are. But however, there's now a prescription drug called Epidiolex that is CBD isolate. So your isolated products could come under control. But the good news is there are no products in drug trials for CBG or CBC or any of these other things, and people are already isolating them and selling them. So they're ahead of the pharmaceutical companies. So there should be some leverage there in court. Although, can you trust I don't know if you can trust the federal court system or not. So right now it's good. There's really never been, imagine the condition that we live in is unprecedented. For 80 years, something's been gone, not only from the marketplace, but from human nutrition. Imagine if we didn't have vitamin C for 80 years. Imagine everybody have scurvy, right? We'd all be dying. CBD is a lot the same. It was in our animal feed. It was in our, our oils and things, supplements that people were taking, 150, 200 years ago. The first known use of cannabis was like 6,000 years ago or something like that in China. So it's been around forever. And, by the way, Tennessee is the only state of 50 states, and this is another bill we passed in 2018, is the first one that allows the feeding of your post-extract biomass to, well, you can feed, or you can just feed your hemp straight out of the field to your cattle or your chickens or whatever. But we have farm-to-table protection. You can't put, because the FDA hasn't ruled hemp is generally recognized as safe, you can't sell any livestock or any eggs or any milk into the commercial market. You can't feed cannabinoids to your cattle and take them to the livestock auction, but you could butcher that yourselves. The Amish are butchers, right, or in the Mennonites, so they got their own thing going. You can sell that product legally only in the state of Tennessee to Tennessee consumers. And the only thing is, you have to say that it's hemp fed. The Farm Bureau, the Cattlemen's Association, they said, you can't feed that stuff, it's an adulterant. So our chairman of our Senate Ag Committee, Steve Sutherland, said, well, write me a bill that says that it's an adulterant. They wrote it, it's an adulterant. That's the selling point. It's adulterated with hemp. Who would you rather have, a hemp-fed egg or an egg from Walmart?
Hemp-fed.
With a shell so thin, if you squeeze it too hard, it'll smash open. So, I mean, there's a unique opportunity here to feed, to have hemp-fed milk, to have hemp-fed beef, to have hemp-fed pork, to have hemp-fed eggs, to have hemp-fed poultry, where you can go to the farmer's market and, have a freezer or take orders and things like that. So there's a lot of unique marketing opportunities that exist because those trace cannabinoids still exist at some level after you've extracted the oil out of it. So there's that. We're also, as of today, Tennessee is the first state to have codified legally to be able to smoke hemp of any non-marijuana state. What we did it from reverse. We said, well, we don't want the industry to have a black eye by being known for peddling our products to children. So what we want is we want the same language applied to smoking to hemp as is to smoking tobacco and vaping. So what we wrote a law that said you have to be 18 to buy hemp, that stores have to card, because until today, a child could technically have gone to the convenience store, bought an 1/8 ounce of hemp and smoked it, and there would have been no legal consequence of that. My children are not allowed to smoke. I hope your children aren't allowed to smoke. And if they are smoking, you just rip it out of their mouth and smack them across the face. And just don't tell child services. But seriously, I mean, a child doesn't get to choose what they do with their body. It's the parents. That child belongs to the parents. So we didn't want a black eye. But what we did is we created a definition of smoking hemp. So now, go grow your smoking hemp. And maybe we'll put this tax on it, maybe we won't, but we're going to exempt the farmer from selling it. The farmer's going to be exempt from the tax if they've got the proper paperwork with TDA to sell it directly to the consumer. So you could set up like a fireworks stand. You set up, hey, fireworks guy, can I set up here next to you and sell some hemp? So, okay, so what we're really going to probably tax is things that are specific to smoking, like a pre-roll, or if we have hemp cigarettes coming down the line. But here's the thing, hemp flower is not necessarily a smoking product. It could be, I don't care what people do with it. You can grind it up and put it in your brownies and eat it. So there's nothing specifically that says unless I packaged it for smoking, that it's for smoking. So that's probably going to be exempt. So when you go to the dispensary and, the $5 a gram nuggets, the $10 a gram nuggets, whatever they are, I don't know how you can apply that as a smoking product, because that's not necessarily what it is. So we're doing a lot. Again, go to the tnhia.org website. You can also go to HIA's national website, join. It's only $150 per year for a small family farm to join. Let me tell you, that's a bargain. And I don't get paid by the TNHI, I'm a volunteer. But the TNHI does a lot of this kind of work. They come to and if you want to come to a meeting and just test it out, it's $10 for non-members. If you're a member, go ahead and just print your receipt or just save it as a PDF and put it on your phone and bring it in. Show us that you joined, because we won't have, if you've just joined, we won't have that updated list from the national. Half of the money from your membership stays with the national organization. Half of it comes back to the state chapter. By the way, Tennessee has the largest chapter of the hemp industry, state chapter of the Hemp Industries Association in America. We're the biggest. We're the biggest because and there are companies from Kentucky flooding here. There are companies from Colorado and California. The weed growers are running away because they've regulated, like they do with everything else on the left coast, is they regulate themselves to death. And we're all about the free market here. I said left coast. Yeah, I see you laughing at me. We're trying to do things the right way. That's not to say that more rigorous testing for pesticides, herbicides, molds, things like that, they're coming. So grow your crop correctly. I mean, harvest it correctly, cure it correctly. These are all things that are going to add value to your crop. So, and I know Frank and them are doing a whole lot to educate you about how to finish it, because every single step of what you do is vitally important to the end product. If we have a record rainfall like we did in October and November last year, I mean, you really are going to be better off curing your product in a steel building with dehumidifiers on it than you are by hanging it in a tobacco barn. The other problem with tobacco barns is hemp takes up 4 times more space than tobacco does because it's a tree. So, we know that tobacco wilts and it makes a cylinder. And we can put 8 or 10 of those on a tobacco stick and we can hang it on the rafters, and you can put 2, 3, 4, 5 acres in a lot of these barns around here. Not true with hemp. I mean, it's going to be something big and gangly. Hemp, it takes 30 years to grow a pine pulpwood tree to make paper. It takes 90 days to grow hemp for paper. So we're working with the states of Louisiana and Florida right now to remediate the algae bloom in Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Okeechobee, which are the 2 biggest in 2 states with massive amounts of runoff, of nitrogen runoff and phosphorus runoff. They're turning. Corporate agriculture is turning the ecosystem upside down. I don't even believe in global warming, but what I do know is the stuff that runs off, that is far more of a serious environmental problem than anything that's been manufactured to redistribute money from people that have it to those that don't have it. But you can look at the evidence of what runoff is doing. You can see from space outside of both of where the water runs off of Florida, the oceans are turning pink because the algae's taking over, because all that additional phosphorus and all that additional nitrogen's going in there, and first of all, what the residual Roundup and dicamba are also going in there, and they're killing the vegetation that's already there. So the algae thrives in an environment where none of the other plants are taking off. So what we want to do is we want to plant hemp in the waterways down there. Now that's going to create a pollen problem for those with female plants, but
Joey, I got to cut you short. We're
all right.
here till 8.
All right, man. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so like our posts, share our posts, join the TNHIA.
Guys, one more speaker I got. His name's Danny. He's with Texas Pasture Plus. A lot of you guys are using this stuff. If you don't have a nutrient line that you're using right now, I suggest you listen in on this. 1 quart covers an acre. 1 quart covers an acre in an open field. So strongly suggest we listen to what he has to say if you don't have a nutrient line that you're using already. Danny, go ahead. You want to say something too? Yeah, sure. We can mic you up. All right, because we're out of time, I was going to say something in closing, and I'll say it to you right now. When I came here to Stewart County to retire, to hang out with my sister who lives in Stewart County and my brother who lived in Stewart County, I had a vision, not so much as a vision to do anything constructive, just that I was going to help a few farmers negotiate through this hemp thing. I wasn't going to get all involved. I was going to open a small store, mind my own business, and retire. In lieu of the events that happened since we've started this, the picture has grown much bigger, much larger. Because I know everyone can't take on the full gambit of what we have to do in this. I made the suggestion that maybe I will try to help in any way that I can, whether it be drying, whether it be trimming, whether it be curing, whether definitely be selling. So when I first got here, I had a lot of friends, a lot of family that was very encouraging for me. But I had a lot of skeptics that said, you can't go to Stewart County. You can't go where you're going and open up a successful hemp business. You've got LBL to your west, which you can't grow in LBL. You've got the military post, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, to your east. And you've got the Kentucky state line to your north, which I didn't know I was going to be able to cross over in Kentucky. I'm glad that I can. Thank you very much. So geographically, this is the worst location I could have to do really anything. So, well, it's been over a year. We're still here. Every promise that I made to you, I have fulfilled. I owe nobody anything up to this point right now, and we are moving ahead. We are into the second phase. So thank you all for working with me, and thank you all for believing in me. We're going to pull this off. We're actually going to do this. What we're going to need is farmers with buildings that aren't using them, that want to make some money. Rent them out for a month or two to dry our products. We are working on the GH Armor building. It's a $150,000 repair. We get rent for 4 months for free. I'm having trouble coming up with $150,000. I had an investor. That investor wanted to decide what they were going to pay you for your product, which was completely against what I had in mind to do in the first place. So I rejected that investor. So I don't have that $150,000 or $500,000 to work on this building. So we may be doing a fundraiser. I may be cashing in stocks. We'll figure out a way to get this building down here for us to dry. I can't dry 350 acres of hemp. I cannot do it. Even if I had that facility, 3 of them, I couldn't do it. So I need you to try to find places to cure it or to dry it. Now you can dry it simply in one of these tents that they have for the 4th of July, one of those circus tents. Carport, garage. I've seen it dried in a closet on a coat hanger. Granted, you bigger growers will have to get a facility for, but the smaller ones can grow it anywhere you have a roof over that. All you gotta do is keep it out of the sun and keep air moving on it. Yes, sir.
My question is because I thought about building my own little shed to dry and string the rolls or anything to hold it up there on. Do we have to have anything on the sides to keep anything from?
No, you don't. But the one problem with that, as Joe said about the tobacco barns, is right around the time that we're going to dry it, it wants to be 99% humidity and then rain for 3 days. If that's the case, your open air buildings aren't going to help you much. The good news is, the good news is about the tobacco barn is, yes, this plant is 3 and 4 times larger than the tobacco plant, but it doesn't come down all in the same day. You can cherry pick your field, your acre for a month. You can pull up plants, dry them down, and as they come down, you add more to them. And the plants don't all harvest at the same time. So if you're clever and you can spot the right things and stay moving, don't take any days off. You don't have time to take days off if you want that money. Keep it rotating. After it dries off that branch, when you break that branch, if it bends, you've got to dry it more. If it snaps, it's ready to go. You shuck it into a big bag, which is called a hemp sack. You seal that bag up, and then you bring it to me. And then we get your C of A on it, and then we'll separate it from bud to biomass. What we'll be doing with the biomass is, because we're such small farms, less than 4 acres most of us, they don't want to process us until the end, until they're all done with the big farms. So I want to take because we're only growing 2 strains, I want to take all of our cherry wines, biomass it, and sell it. Take all of our box, sell it, the biomass. We keep the flower for a higher price if we can, but like Joe said, don't bet the house on that. Prices, I think, will go up in excess of $100 a pound. The biomass will be sold as soon as we can get it sold, because it really won't affect the price any if we wait on that. And that gives us money for Christmas. That gives us money to get out of the red and get back into the green. That gives us money to say, okay, we're good for a little bit. Let's wait a little and see what the price does on the flower and see if it goes up or down. We will be posting, I was going to do it with a $30,000 sign, but we're not going to get that sign now. So we'll be posting what the price is per week. So every week you can call down and I'll say the price is going for $47 depending on and it's all paid for by price per point per pound. So 10% CBDs, 10 is my per point, right? So 10 times the weight that I have equals my volume, okay? So anybody have any questions on that? So we're trying to get you money by Christmas. We're trying to get everybody to have a good Christmas and to get to the point where we can wait. Some of you obviously will be pressed for money. There's no way around that. When I first got here, they said, Frank, you won't be open for a year. We're open for a year. They said, Frank, you're not going to get 40 farmers to sign this because there's not that much interest in it. We have over 110 farmers now. We signed 3 more farmers today. This is going full steam ahead. So the part that I even doubted was that we could get to these kind of numbers and this kind of interest. So with everybody working together and together that we grow, we can pull this off and we can be an epicenter for Stewart, not just Stewart County, Tennessee. And I don't mean to disclude Kentucky. I include all of them. We have farmers in Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri now. So we are growing everywhere. My world domination is going to have to take the back seat until we get it figured out here and we run this. We did have some problems down at work. Some people have left me. That doesn't change a darn thing. I have new and improved employees. 2.0. We're Gabberdunes 2.0 now. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
What are the repairs that you need on that building?
They are roof repairs. They estimate $150,000.
Instead of a fundraiser, why don't we all get together one day and we do it?
I love the way the Amish think. I would love to do that. So, all right. And I love that idea, and I love that. The problem with that is it is owned by the city of Dover. And I don't know what the ramifications are. The mayor had to leave. But I will pitch that idea to them, because I would rather come up with $40,000. I'm an old commercial roofer, it just so happens. I don't have my license anymore, but you don't even need a license to be a roofer in Dover. So I love the idea if there's more interest in it. And you know what? I wouldn't be opposed to giving you all a piece of it, everybody that helped me in it. Whether we dry your product for a reduced price, or we give you dividends in the end, or we even give you percentages of the company. But if you're interested in that, keep that in mind, and I'll reach out to you more maybe at the next meeting, because we still have a few months. To retrofit, it's not going to be much. I don't have to fix the roof to use the building right now, but that is definitely an offer we will entertain. Did anybody have any other questions? I think that's great. I'm going to turn it over to Danny now.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. If you've bought our product, the Texas Pasture Plus line of products, or anything from Frank, we appreciate it. We've had lots of people that's bought the stuff. I'd like to meet y'all if y'all are here that called and asked for some directions on how to use the product. I wish I had the vocabulary and intelligence that a lot of people here that's talked have, but I don't. I'm from Waco, Texas, just south, little bitty town, not where David Koresh was at, if y'all are wondering about that. Dalton and Dylan will both have agricultural degrees, a crop specialist in general agriculture and agricultural business management before long, so I'm smart enough to keep them around. Dylan's grew up on a farm. You talk about farm boy, that's a farm boy. Dalton, we're working on him. I grew up on a cattle ranch for years. My grandfather would always say, you know, we used to have to put this much fertilizer into the ground to get the same amount of hay that we get now. Dylan's grandfather is fourth, fifth generation farmers saying the same thing. You know, years ago we could put 50 pounds of nitrogen. Now they were saying we need to put 400 pounds of nitrogen. Myself, I owned a feed store. We sold a lot of organic stuff, got into the non-GMO thing, and then we got into fertilizer. Our big thing is foliar feed fertilizer. We think that we could supply the plant with just enough nutrients. I think that most plants are smart enough not to take the nutrients that they don't need, from the research I've done. I think most of the time, and Carson had a cover crops are the great thing. One of the best things you got going, especially up here in Kentucky, where you can grow cover crops here. Well, we have a lot harder problem with the climate in Texas because it's a lot hotter longer. We don't have the cool nights, the cool mornings that y'all have here that can support the clover. So that's great. But what we think we can do is if you have healthy soil, we can fertilize your plant just enough. We can give it the micronutrients to produce the same amount. So Texas, I'm going to go through these real quick. And before I start, is there any farmers that's been farming their whole life? Farming, putting fertilizer out. I thought you might look like one. No offense. That's how I dress when I'm at home. So I don't usually have on starch jeans and a nice shirt. I'm usually in overalls and dirty, covered in grease. So we do apply our fertilizer all over Texas. We sell fertilizer all over Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio. If you go from Texas north, I've sold it in every state to the East Coast. We sold it in Alaska. I don't know what they used it for. We sell it in Hawaii. Several years ago, a guy called me from California, and I started explaining this stuff. And I said, so what are you putting it on? He said, I don't really want to tell you. But he said, just send me a $5. So I kind of knew what he was putting it on. The cannabis industry broke loose in Oklahoma. We probably sell more in Oklahoma than we do any other state of any of our products. So when that happened, we had some people using it, had success. Our big deal is commercial fertilizer. So on this label, I'm going to go through here. The first little set of words, the bullet points here on these came from Oklahoma State. Danny didn't make this up. It's not, and then over here a little more long-winded are the Aggies from Texas A&M. So this is what they say when they tested our products, and it's our micronutrient line. So that's in the organic, that's in the 488, that is in the 1555. I ask about the farmers. So when I tell you you could put 32 ounces to the acre of this stuff, and you get equivalent to putting 100 pounds of 1555 granule fertilizer out. So what Texas A&M and Oklahoma State say, Tennessee State, Kentucky State will tell you, is that you put 100 pounds down, the plant is going to take in so much of that fertilizer. So what we're saying is with a quart of our stuff, we can give that plant just as much fertilizer as you're going to putting 100 pounds down. And that's actually at 12.8 ounces is what Texas A&M and Oklahoma State say. So we're telling you to bump it up to a quart to the acre. And this is over grass. And, that's our big thing. We're hayfield guys. It just works on everything. We start having people put it on grapes, pumpkins, any crop you can imagine. So it says, using Texas Pasture Plus is going to give you addition of organic matter to organically deficient soils. We do that with our commercial products by feeding your microbial life. We do that with humic, folic, amino, and organic acids, and some salts, and some that's in no way organic. So if you're not organic, never go to Frank and buy 1555. Always make sure it says organic if you're going to be certified organic. It increases root vitality, improved nitrogen uptake, better seed germination, increase fertilizer retention, stimulate beneficial microbial activity, healthier plants improve yields, increasing buffering properties of your soil. Like Carson was saying, you're using non-organic alfalfa seed. So alfalfa is always going to be non-GMO. I kind of think that's taken over more than organic. You hear that a lot more now. People are concerned about you plant the seed, it grows, it's organic. If you're not putting 2,4-D on it, and or Buterac is what it would kill all the weeds and not the alfalfa. Stimulates plants' enzymes, improves blossom and fruit set, increases root respiration and formation, thickens and enlarges and balances the leaf growth, helping plants to endure environmental stress. So this is always one of my biggest selling points. We sell people to corn all over the country. People call us with corn, and my corn is yellow. We've had too much rain. We tell them we'll put a quart of our stuff across the acre, and they'll send us pictures 2 days later. Their corn is green and healthy again. So if you think your plant is in a stress period, I'm gonna tell you, you're not gonna damage those plants by putting any of my fertilizers, any of the lines on the plants. I don't care if you do it once a week. You're not gonna give that plant too much fertilizer, because what it doesn't need, it will not take, or it will pass right through. A plant is just like me or you. You sit down to eat, you're gonna eat what you need. If you're starving, you're gonna take what you need, and the rest of it's gonna pass out. I don't wanna explain the anatomy, but the plant is the same way. So I just think plants are smart enough to take care of themselves if they have the opportunity to, just like you or I can.
So Danny, how long can we keep feeding this particular, before we switch over to the Bloom product?
So just like Karsten was saying, is you can start feeding the Bloom product now, I believe, if you wanted to start root development. So the idea with this stuff is, and now we're going back to the organic product, and that's basically the majority of what Frank has. I'm gonna say 90% of it is the organic. And the clarity, Frank is the dealer up here for this too. So I've had people call, can I buy it from you and ship it? My answer is no. If you met me through Frank, if you're here now, you're gonna have to buy it through Frank. And he sells it for the same price I'm gonna sell it to you for. But yeah. We do this, I make a living off of fertilizer. I got 4 kids and a wife I have to feed, and Frank's feeding, and I promise you're getting a deal, because I've seen several of y'all soil samples or people in the cooperative, and if you go put what the state of Tennessee selling you put down organic wise, it's costing you upwards of $500 or $600 an acre, the way they're recommending to do it. And there's a whole lot better ways, guys. I have people every day call us and say, man, this is my soils, and I appease them and I say, okay, send me your soil sample. Then I'm gonna tell them, okay, put a quart of my stuff over the acre. And then I'll explain the same way I have to y'all, that a soil sample doesn't really mean a whole lot to me except for the pH level and the organic matter. Everything else, we can fertilize the plant directly and give it exactly what it needs. I lost where I was at. So the organic product is 1 quart to the acre is how we recommend it on grass. We have some guys out in West Texas that put it in the furrow with their cotton seed, and I'm talking about some old men that they could care less about the word organic. Don't go around the coffee shop and say it, because they'll run you out of there. But they use it because it works. We made guys $90 an acre more on their cotton.
You gotta wait till he's done for
$10 investment in there, because they used enough of buy enough of the product to get it that cheap. I mean, that's $80 return on a $10 investment is pretty good. Our product, when you read this label, everybody calls, well, how much water do I mix with this? I do not care how much water you use. All the water is a carrier for our product. So the water gets it out there. So if you use 10 gallons of water to the acre, or if you use 100 gallons of water to the acre, it doesn't matter. You have to know how much water it's gonna take you to get across that acre according to how you're applying it. With our organic product, the idea is to get the soil with the microbes in the soil, direct at the root of the plant. So there's 21 strains of bacteria and fungus that will help fight disease, it will help fight mold, it will help keep small insects away. I'm talking white flies, if we have that issue, any microscopic insects, all of these microbes will help that. So a microbe, 10,000 of them will fit on the head of a needle. So if they travel this far in a lifetime, it's like me traveling to Europe on foot. So they're very centrally located and they stay where you put them. So when you apply them on that plant, they're gonna stay on the leaves of the plant and help protect that plant too. I could talk all night about this stuff. I'm wondering does anybody have any question? Does anybody have any question? Every ingredient, so that is a question here. So 99 out of 100 organic farmers, and your friend John is one of the one out of the 100, they're certified organic farmers all over the country using our product. So what they do, I will never pay Omri. If anybody wants me to get Omri listed, you're going to have to go somewhere else because it's a scam. They say, Danny, okay, we'll certify your product. How much of it do you sell? I ask them, why does it matter? They say, because that's according to how much you're going to have to pay. And they never wanted a sample. They never tested it. So if I sell 1 million gallons, they want $100,000 a year. If I sell 10 gallons, they want 10 gallons a year. And I don't want nobody to know how much I sell. It's nobody's business but mine and those two and my wife, in my opinion. So I'll never be Omri listed, I can promise you that. Now we are working with John getting USDA certified, and that should be anything. But if you are certified organic, all you have to do is have your certifying agency give me their information or give them my information. I will send them every ingredient in this thing. I will give them instructions how we make it. And 99 out of 100 times, they will call you back the next day and say, you can use Texas Pasture Plus Organic. We are fine with it. Every once in a while, something crazy happens. We had a guy say, a certified agency in Seattle, Washington said, well, unless Washington State University certifies your molasses, we can't do it. Is it certified? Have they ever tested it? And our molasses that we get is made in Hondo, Texas. If y'all have never been to Hondo, it's a pretty small town, and they're not shipping their stuff to the state of Washington. And it was even Omri listed, but it's not good enough for this certified agency because Washington State doesn't say it is. So, I mean, I'm not that guy. I'm not the organic guy. If y'all are, I apologize, but most of it is a scam. It's just, plant what you got, take care of it, and do it the right way. The other thing, any of you guys can call, get this brochure, 10 o'clock at night. We'll answer the phone.
Just come down and shop, pick it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Get the mic. We gotta get it. All right, so two
I don't
more
wanna run
things,
over
and
that
then
one.
we're all done here. I know we're running a little late, running a little long. One is I don't endorse any nutrient line except for this one, only because I've seen it work. I test a lot of products. I still don't endorse anything. But when my farmers here, Arthur Lewis being one of them, tells me a product works, I look into it. When I look into it and it works, I endorse it. That's the only product I endorse right now. Another thing, the lawyer Dan Pabone is here. He's going to go over the contracts. I do not have copies for you to sign right now. They are on my computer, waiting to go to the printer, but he is here to give you the gist of it. My contracts, Dan, hold up a minute. Dan, hold up a minute. I'm almost done. So when my contract is the same as it was before. I would do it with a handshake, but unfortunately I can't do it with a handshake because of the state of the economy right now, or the state of the way everything runs with corporate and business and everything. Still offer you the same deal I offered you 9 months ago when we started this. If I dry it, it's 5%. And it's not 5% is not a lot in this industry. If I trim it, it's 5%. When I sell it, because that was the original deal, so that's all you're really required to do is give me 5%. That's all I really want is that 5%. I would love to see you guys do it all by yourself and keep all the money yourselves. Because I have 100 farmers, that 5% does add up to a lot of money. Do I want to dry it for you and cure you? Absolutely. But my father told me one time, and I'm sure all of you heard this before, is you give a man a fish, you fed him for a day. You teach a man to fish, you fed him for the rest of his life. So I'm a firm believer in that, and I think we are on the correct path here to really kick this thing in the butt. And to really, make a name for us, not just Stewart County or Tennessee or Kentucky, but the whole Southeast being the epicenter of it, because it's not the devil's lettuce. It is not even diet weed. We can't even call it diet weed because it's such a low level THC. So Dan, if you're ready.
Sure.
So Dan is from come on up, Dan. Dan is from Colorado. His name, I believe, is on every piece of legislation to legalize marijuana in the state of Colorado. He has now since then moved to Nashville, and he's become a lobbyist for the great state of Tennessee. And I'll let him take over from here.
All right, thanks, Frank. And I know it's been a long night. I've been sitting anxiously waiting and watching all the different presentations you've had. I am a lawyer, and I get paid hourly, so I have a 3-hour presentation today. I'm totally kidding. That's just to break the ice a little bit. So I have been involved in the hemp and cannabis industry for the last decade in Colorado and helped to shape and form policy and contracts and business plans for folks all over the world. And I moved to Franklin, Tennessee about a year and a half ago because my wife's family is there, and so we moved to be closer with her family. And so I saw an opportunity here in this great state to help many folks who are interested in learning about the industry, both from a practical side, which you have many experts here, but many of you are asking very, very important legal questions. What is your liability? What are the cops going to do? What happens if my crop is hot? My job in this arena is to help advise you. Unfortunately, I can't advise you collectively. I can answer some general questions, so we can talk about the product that's left on a consumer's dashboard and heat it up. I'll address that situation. I'll answer a couple of questions. But this is more of a teaser for the future. As Frank mentioned, there is a very carefully worded balance contract between the producers and the buyer, and something that is, I hope, very straightforward and easy to understand for all of you to do, because this is a joint venture at the end of the day. If you don't succeed and the sales don't happen, then no one succeeds. And I've helped set this up, like I said, in different parts of the world: Uruguay, Puerto Rico, Missouri, Illinois, California, New York, and Colorado. And have seen and heard many of these discussions thousands of times. This is probably my 200th meeting of this sort. And so I always like to sit in back and just listen and see the questions, understand a little bit more about the audience, and then have an opportunity to answer any questions. Is there time for a couple questions or two? So a question just about the consumer who leaves with the product on their dashboard and what that legal liability is to you. So the state of Tennessee recognizes possession by an individual, not by a collective business. In other words, once that individual has possession of that product, that liability is connected to that individual. If the law enforcement wants to find out who sourced that information or where it came from, that's fine. But at the end of the day, a law enforcement official, just think about it from this perspective, they have to prove their case. So they have to prove that at the time that it left your facility, that product was at a higher level tolerance than is accepted under law. And in the meantime, you had a consumer who drove who knows where for who knows how long and at what temperature the sun was at that period. A law enforcement officer is not going to, generally speaking, worry about where the product came from. They may visit you and say, hey, just wanted you to know this product tested hot. But I'm going to hold the consumer liable for that, charge them if they do at all. These cases are very difficult to prove, and by and large, the advice that I heard earlier about just contacting your sheriff, having them come down and take a look at the property, registering that with the local jurisdiction is going to go so far in trying to build community relations with that particular agency. Other questions? Yes, sir. Similar question, similar set of circumstances. Once that product is out of your possession and you no longer have control over it, you no longer have the ability to determine what that individual is going to do with it, generally speaking, that liability will cut off at the time that transfer occurs and that person leaves the property. So if that product has, let's just use some sort of illicit substance, like let's say that the product is laced with cocaine for some reason. That is not going to come back to you because that is not traceable back to the source of origin. Yeah.
Anybody have any contract questions? I know you had a lot of contract questions. A lot of people had contract questions before. It's pretty laid out the way that I explained it to you for the last 9 months. Nothing's really changed. But I mean, that's kind of Dan will answer your questions, but really it came down to answer the contract questions.
Yeah, any question about the contract, the business, liabilities, anything like that? Yes, sir.
Well, after Monday, I should have enough copies. I should have copies made. I got to go to Clarksville, get copies made. We were finalizing it. We had to change a couple letters and words around. Otherwise, I would have had them today. So we pushed the envelope and we came close, but we're all right. We'll be down there. Now, if you don't sign the contract, let me be perfectly clear here. If you do not sign the contract, you do not get an escrow account. If you do not get an escrow account, I cannot guarantee you your money because you are not under contract with me. If you do not sign the contract, I will not ship hemp sacks to your facility for you to strip this product into. If you don't sign the contract, I'm assuming you don't want to do business with me. And if that's the case, that's fine. I would like my plant money back that I spotted if I spotted Jenny, and I would like my 5% for you to sell it because you wouldn't even have it if I didn't give it to you. So if you don't want to sign the contract, you do not have to. But I cannot guarantee you or promise you that I will sell your money, that I will be able to sell your product, or you will get your check. Because Dan is put together a deal where we put this in escrow, your product doesn't leave my facility until the money's in the account. Okay? Does everybody understand that? I understand some people are sniffing around, they're saying I'll buy this and I'll buy that, but I know there's farmers in this Stewart County that still have not gotten paid for stuff they sold last year. So, yes. Yes.
And that happened to a lot of farmers last year in Kentucky and Tennessee. So that's actually a really.
I don't mean to step on you here, Dan.
No, that's perfect.
One more thing
that's what people want to know.
Yeah. What's that? Really? Well, we're not going to let that happen to you, Arthur. Another thing is the Chinese, the Russians, and some other people are trying to flood our market with seed right now. It is a substandard seed. It is not feminized. There's a really, really hard, it's almost impossible to tell the difference. So guys like Carson Nation, myself, Matt, Joe Kirkpatrick, we're trying to get together where we can do two things. We can regulate the flower, because you tell me I'm buying one thing and I'm getting something completely different. So we're going to try to work on regulating that. That's one of the reasons we all got together. The other one was so we can let these Chinese investors infest our grows. So if you're going to buy seed from somebody other than us, and I have to play the market game. So when I raise my seed price, let's say I go from 25 cents to $5. The reason I'm raising that up like that is because I can't have somebody coming in and buying up all of our seed and selling them for a higher price to somebody else. So is that the price that I charge you guys when you come down to get it? No. That's the price I advertise, so nobody will come in and buy it all up and sell it to somebody else to make a profit and leave us with no seed. We still have 30,000 plants to sell. I have 10,000 of them or I have 1,000 in red solo cups. We overgrew because we didn't want to leave anybody out of the game. They reopened the market to where you can apply for a license again. We expect to see more growers. I really expected to lean towards more indoor growers. This is where this is going to go. My vision tells me that this is going to be great to grow this year outside. Next year will get a little tougher. The year after that, I don't think you're going to be able to turn anything near the profit that you're going to turn this year or next year. Just because we're going to have so much hemp growing outside, and we're switching to a textile hemp, which is a whole nother game that I won't get into right now, but that's coming 2 or 3 years down the road. And that is seeded, it's broadcasted, it's harvested with equipment, it's over 10 acres. Everything's going to get pollinated, except the growers that are growing inside of greenhouses. So if you want to stay with this industry and you feel you're pretty good at it, then I suggest you invest in a greenhouse or 2 greenhouses so you can provide a good quality for the connoisseur. We're starting to see a lot of connoisseurs show up that we saw in the marijuana industry where they're critiquing every single thing about it. And if you want to play in that game, it's a very lucrative game, very tough game to be into though. But that's where I see it. So our window really here is 2 years. And then it goes into textile or it goes inside. I'm sorry, Dan, I'll let you finish up with what you're saying. I apologize.
No, but that's a very important part of the contract. Thanks, Frank. The escrow agent is a protection for you and for Frank, so that anytime that the product is then transferred to a pursuant to the contract, then the funds are released. So you can sign off on, and before that, before that transaction happens, Frank will tell you, here's the price, here's the percentage out, and you sign the bottom line that says, yep, I totally agree to this. And at that time, that fee will be, that payment will be transferred and the product will be taken. So it's totally within your hands and ability to control, and you can do that for the entire season. And that's a best practice that we've figured out over the course of many cycles and many years. And it seems to work out great because it's fair to you, it's transparent. And that's, I think, when you have a joint venture like this, you want transparency. That's all you want. You might not get the highest price that you see out there advertised, as Frank has mentioned, but you know that what you're getting is going where it should be going, and you know it's going directly back into your bank account, and you're not getting shorted for 2+ years. So that was the design. All right.
No more questions for the lawyer that drove like 8 hours to get out here?
No, it was a good drive.
All right, guys, good job. First Monday of every month. Thank you, Dan. Don't forget that Saturday the 20th, if you want to take that class, it's $50 if you're a member, $100 if you're not. It will be very informative class. We will actually go out to my farm and prune and crop and do all the work I don't want to do. For free. No, I want you to pay me to do it. What's up, man? Good to see you again, brother.
That you were just saying about your farm. When is that?
That's Saturday the 20th.
The 20th. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
We'll call you about the contract deal.
Soundon't good, brother. We'll see
I
you.
guess
Stop
you
by
trust-
whenever
you've
the
been
hell you
trusting-
want.
We've been trusting each other.
I
this
know.
long
Well,
now.
that's all I got. I ain't hiding nothing. I don't know you nothing. I don't know none of you nothing.